Welcome back to our night listeners. This Scary Stories channel explores psychological and mind-bending horror, where reality feels just slightly off. If you enjoy the stories, please like, subscribe, and comment where you're listening from. Get cozy. Story 1. Everyone keeps calling me by a name that isn't mine, but my ID agrees with them. It started with the barista. "Morning, Daniel," she said, sliding the coffee across the counter. "Black, 2 sugars, just how I like it, though I'd never ordered it here before." "Usual?" I blinked. No. It's Benjamin Carter." She frowned, not unkindly, just confused, like I'd mispronounced my own name. She glanced at the screen behind her. "Says Daniel Mercer here. Paid in full." I looked. The order screen. "Daniel M., large black, 2.75. My credit card receipt, poking from the cup sleeve, bore the same. "Card holder, Daniel Mercer." I pulled out my wallet. "Driver's license, Benjamin Carter, Dobb, 4/12/1994. Address, 327 Sycamore Lane, Apt 4B. But beneath the laminate, faint, as if printed in disappearing ink, the name Daniel Mercer shimmered like heat haze over asphalt. I rubbed it with my thumb. The shimmer solidified. Daniel Mercer. I dropped the license. It clattered on the counter. The barista didn't flinch. "You okay, Daniel? You look pale." "I didn't go to work. I drove 2 hours north to my parents' house. The white colonial with the wraparound porch. The hydrangeas Sarah and I used to fight over watering. Mom answered the door. Her face lit up. 'Oh, Danny, what a surprise.' She pulled me into a hug. Tight, familiar, smelling of lavender and cinnamon. 'Mom,' I started. 'Come in,' she said, stepping back, hands on my shoulders. Her eyes, soft, blue, the same as mine, searched my face. 'You've lost weight. Still working too hard at that lab?' 'Mom, it's Ben.' She laughed, a warm, knowing laugh. 'Oh, honey, not this again. You dropped Ben in 10th grade after that kid Ben Riley stole your science fair project. Said it felt like bad luck.' She squeezed my arm. 'You've been Daniel ever since. Always were, really. Even as a baby, Danny was your first word.' I followed her inside. The house was exactly as I remembered, except for the photos. Every frame on the walls, school portraits, graduation, family Christmases, showed me. But the name in the corner of each mat? Daniel, my high school diploma hanging in the hall. Daniel James Mercer. Valedictorian, class of 2012, my Little League trophy. Daniel Mercer. Most valuable player, 2006. Even the framed ultrasound on the fridge, grainy black and white, tiny curled form, had a sticky note. Danny, 12 bouquets, healthy as a horse. I walked to the bathroom, stared in the mirror. Same face, same scar above the left eyebrow. Bike accident, age 8. Same green eyes. But when I leaned closer, really close, the reflection hesitated, just for a fraction of a second, like it was waiting for me to catch up. I whispered, "Benjamin." The reflection mouthed it back, but the name tag on my worn Patagonia jacket, hanging on the back of the door, read, "Daniel," in my own handwriting. I called Sarah. Her number rang 6 times. Then her voice, wary but warm. "Danny, is everything okay?" "Sarah, thank God, it's me. Ben." A pause. "Danny, you're scaring me. What's going on?" "Look at your phone. My contact. What does it say?" "Daniel Mercer," she said instantly. "With the little star, brother. It's been that way since we got iPhones." "But, Sarah, we grew up together. You know I'm Ben." Her voice softened. grief-tinged. "Danny, you don't remember, do you?" "Remember what?" "The accident 3 years ago. The hydrocodone. The dissociation episodes." She inhaled sharply. "After Mom and Dad died, you just fractured. Started insisting you were someone else." "Benjamin." "A name you made up. Dr. Evans called it fugue identity adoption. A coping mechanism so complete your mind rewrote everything to fit." My knees buckled. I sat on the edge of the tub. "Mom and Dad died?" "Car crash. Route 9. Black ice. January 7th, 2023. Her voice broke. "You were supposed to be with them. You canceled last minute. You had that night shift at the lab. You blamed yourself so hard, Danny. You just left." I touched my chest. No scar, but a memory surfaced, sharp, visceral. Rain on the windshield, radio playing Landslide, Dad's hand on the wheel, Mom turning to smile at me in the back seat. I gasped. Seatbelt taut, crunch of metal, glass exploding. The memory cut off, like a film reel snapping. "Your ID," Sarah said gently. "It's all been updated, court-ordered to stabilize you. Dr. Evans said consistency was key, so we all agreed to call you Daniel, to let you be Daniel, even when you fought it." I pulled out my license again, held it under the bathroom light. The laminate wasn't shimmering. It was solid. Daniel James Mercer, Dobb, 04/12/1994, height 5'11", eyes, green organ donor ISS, 10/17/2023, issued 3 months ago. The old license, the Benjamin Carter one, was gone from my wallet. In its place, a folded letter, therapist's letterhead. Dr. Eleanor Evans, Ph.D., licensed clinical psychologist. To whom it may concern, Daniel James Mercer, DOB 04/12 Parker 1994, has been under my care since January 2023, following acute dissociative fugue triggered by traumatic bereavement. His adopted identity, Benjamin Carter, served a protective function, but has become maladaptive. Per court order, Mar CV 2023 8/41, all legal documents, financial records, and personal identifiers have been conformed to his birth identity to facilitate reintegration. Cooperation from family, friends, and institutions is essential. Any reinforcement of the Benjamin identity may trigger regression. Sincerely, Eleanor Evans, Ph.D. I read it 3 times. My hands didn't shake. That was the worst part. I believed it, not intellectually, cellularly, like my bones knew the truth before my mind caught up. I walked back to the living room. Mom was setting the table for lunch. Turkey sandwiches, potato chips, the blue plates we'd had since I was 10. "Sit, Danny," she said. "I made your favorite." I sat. She handed me a sandwich. "Remember when you were 7 and you buried that plastic dinosaur in the backyard? Insisted it was a real fossil? You dug for 3 days straight." She smiled. "You always knew things, even when they weren't real yet." I took a bite. Turkey, mayo, rye bread, toasted just right. The taste flooded me. Home, safety, before. "Who was Benjamin?" I asked quietly. Mom's smile didn't falter. "No one, sweetheart. Just a story you told yourself to survive." I didn't go back to the city. I stayed. Slept in my old room. The walls still covered in band posters. Radiohead, not Metallica. Science fair ribbons. Daniel Mercer, first place 2010. A framed acceptance letter to Caltech. "Congratulations, Daniel." My phone, Daniel's phone, buzzed. Work, MedTech Solutions. Subject, "Daniel, urgent MRI calibration due. not radiology. MRI technician. I opened the email. My employee, ID, D. Mercer, 7. Shift schedule, Monfrey, 7 a.m., 3 p.m. Parking pass, spot number 14, all real, all mine. I drove to MedTech the next morning. The security guard, Carl, bald, mustache, knew me for years, nodded as I approached. "Morning, Daniel. Heard you took some personal time." "Yeah," I said. "Needed it." He scanned my badge. Access granted. D. Mercer. The lab was familiar. The hum of the 3T Siemens magnet, the smell of ozone and antiseptic. My workstation, dual monitors, ergonomic chair, a framed photo on the desk, me and Sarah, arms around each other, grinning, in front of the Grand Canyon. Summer 2022, scrawled on the mat, Danny and Sarah, best sibs. I sat, logged in. Username, DeMercer. Password, Sunrise 7. It worked. Patient schedule loaded. First scan, Reynolds, M. Brain, WWO contrast. I prepped the machine, called the patient back. An elderly man shuffled in, nervous. "Don't worry, Mr. Reynolds," I said, adjusting the coil. "Just lie still. Listen to the music. I cue up jazz for everyone. Makes the noise less scary." He smiled. "You always were thoughtful, Daniel." I froze. Always? I'd only been here 6 months, according to HR, but his certainty was absolute, like it was fact, like it was history. I started the sequence, the magnet word to life. Thump, 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 rhythmic, powerful, and beneath it, I heard it, faint. From the headphones I'd placed over his ears, not jazz, a voice, female, singing. "Love is now the stardust of yesterday." Stardust? Sarah's favorite. The song from Solitude. I ripped the headphones off. Silence. Just the MRI's pulse. Mr. Reynolds looked at me, concerned. "You okay, son?" I forced a smile. "Fine, just thought I heard something." I finished the scan, walked to the break room. Vending machine hummed. I bought a Coke. The can felt cold, real. I popped the tab, drank. And that's when I saw it. Reflected in the machine's curved glass. Not my face. His face, Daniel's face, same features, but settled. Softer at the jaw, eyes less haunted. A man who hadn't spent 3 years waiting for a ghost. A man who'd grieved and healed and moved on. I turned. The reflection turned with me. No delay, no hesitation, just alignment. My phone buzzed. Sarah. "Danny," Dr. Evans' office called. "Your quarterly check-in is tomorrow, 10 a.m. She said it's important. Don't skip." I typed back, "I'll be there." Then I deleted the draft, opened notes, typed one sentence. Benjamin Carter was the name I gave the part of me that couldn't bear to be Daniel anymore. I stared at it. The word shimmered, then dissolved, like ink in water. I closed the app, went back to the lab, prepped the next patient, and as the magnet cycled, thump, 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 I didn't hear jazz. I heard silence, peaceful, complete, because the thing no one tells you about forgetting is that sometimes it's not a loss, it's a return. And the name that fits isn't the one you chose, it's the one that finally lets you breathe. I glanced at the clock. 10:47 a.m., Wednesday, January 7th, 2026. 3 years to the day. I touched the scar above my eyebrow, felt the ridge of old bone, and for the first time in years, I didn't flinch, because Daniel remembered the bike. Benjamin remembered the blood, but I remembered riding again, and that was enough. That brings this story to a close. Let's carry on to the next one. A stranger sent me my future diary, and today's entry is missing. The package arrived on a Tuesday. Rain slashed against the window of my studio apartment, a shoebox above Mrs. Gable's laundromat that smelled perpetually of wet wool and detergent. I'd just gotten home from another soul-crushing shift at Data Key Solutions, where I processed insurance claims for people whose lives were reduced to denial codes and deductible percentages. My hand still smelled faintly of toner from the malfunctioning copier. The box sat on my doormat, wrapped in brown paper, no return address, just my name and apartment number, written in precise looping cursive that looked unnervingly familiar. Like my own handwriting after 3 cups of coffee, but smoother, calmer. I almost threw it away. Unsolicited packages are how you get anthrax or crypto mining scams these days. But the weight felt wrong for anthrax, light, almost papery. And the handwriting, it tugged at something. I brought it. Inside, dumped my keys and damp coat on the rickety table by the door, and slit the tape with a paring knife from the kitchenette. Inside, nestled in crumpled newsprint, was a book, not a notebook, a book, bound in cracked dark green leather, the cover worn smooth at the edges. No title, just a single silver clasp holding it shut. It felt cold, heavy. I undid the clasp. The pages were thick, creamy paper, filled edge to edge with that same looping cursive. My breath hitched. It was my handwriting, every slant of the Y, every slightly too large capital I. The way I dotted my I's with a deliberate heavy tap. Impossible. I hadn't written anything longer than a grocery list in years. I flipped to the first page. The date in the top right corner made my stomach drop. October 17th, 2020 is it quoi? Today's date, but the page was blank. Completely, utterly blank. Not a single word, just pristine, untouched paper. Confusion warred with a prickle of unease. I flipped back. The previous page was dated October 16th, 2020, yesterday, and it described my day with terrifying accuracy. Woke at 6:15 a.m. to Mrs. Gable's cat yowling outside. Shower lukewarm again. Burned the toast. Took bus number 42, the one with the broken AC that smells like feet. Sat behind the woman in the neon yellow raincoat who hums show tunes off key. Got to Data Key at 8:47. Brenda from HR cornered me by the coffee machine. Something about updated W-9 forms. Felt a migraine coming on around 10 a.m. Ate the sad tuna sandwich from the deli downstairs for lunch. The copier jammed again during the Henderson file. Left at 5:02 p.m. Rained harder on the walk home. Mrs. Gable yelled at Mr. Peterson about his dryer lint trap. Ordered greasy lo mein. Watched reruns until I fell asleep on the couch at 10:30. Every detail was there. The neon yellow raincoat, the specific grating hum of memory from Cats. The exact time the copier spat out my documents like confetti. The texture of the cheap lo mein noodles. My hand started trembling. I flipped forward. The page for October 15th detailed my weekend, boring, accurate. October 14th, the awkward text exchange with my sister about our mom's birthday. October 13th, the leak of faucet I'd been meaning to fix. It went back months, years even. Entries about job interviews I'd bombed, a minor fender bender last spring, the exact words my landlord used when he warned me about late rent. It was my life, my past life, down to the brand of ibuprofen I kept in the bathroom cabinet. But today's page was blank. I slammed the book shut, the clap of leather loud in the small, quiet apartment. My heart hammered against my ribs like a trapped bird. Who sent this? How? The handwriting, it was mine. But I hadn't written this. I couldn't have. I didn't know what today held beyond the usual grind. Unless this was some kind of elaborate, deeply unsettling prank. Maybe Mark from accounting? He'd always had a weird sense of humor. But Mark didn't know about Brenda's W-9 forms cornering or the specific hum of the woman on the bus. No one did. I called Mark, straight to voicemail. I texted him, "Dude, did you send me a weird leather book?" No reply. I called my sister Chloe. She answered on the third ring, breathless. "Mark? Hey, what's up? You sound weird." "Chloe, did you send me something? A book? In the mail?" "A book? No. Why? You okay? You sound pale." She paused. "Wait, is this about that weird envelope you got yesterday? The one with no return address?" My blood turned to ice. "Yesterday? What envelope?" "The one you texted me about. You said it was heavy, smelled like old paper, and you were freaked out because the handwriting looked like yours but wasn't. You said you hadn't opened it yet." "I didn't get any envelope yesterday, Chloe, I swear." Silence on the line. Then, very slowly, "Mark, I have the screenshot. You texted me at 7:03 p.m. last night. Picture of the envelope on your doormat. Said it gave you the creeps." "I didn't send that text, Chloe. I was home alone all night. Watched The Office reruns. Fell asleep on the couch, just like the book said I would." Another pause, longer this time. Her voice was tight when she spoke again. "Mark, look, maybe you're stressed. Work's been hell. Maybe you just forgot you texted me or sleep texted." "I don't sleep text, Chloe. You know that." My voice cracked. "The book said I fell asleep on the couch at 10:30. How would it know that if I didn't write it?" "Okay," she said, her tone shifting to careful calm. "Okay, maybe it's a coincidence, or one of those AI things. You know, like those apps that generate journals based on your phone data. Scrape your calendar, your texts." "I don't have a calendar app. I use a physical planner, and it doesn't know about Mrs. Gable's cat or the copier jamming on the Henderson file. It knows, everything, Chloe, even the taste of the lo mein." "Mark, breathe. Just don't open it again. Put it in a drawer. Throw it out. We'll talk tomorrow, okay? I'm worried about you." I hung up. The apartment felt suddenly airless, the hum of the refrigerator too loud. I stared at the green leather book on the table. The blank page for today glared at me. Why was it blank? Was it a mistake? Had the sender run out of time? Or was it deliberate, a trap? I needed proof this wasn't just me cracking under pressure. I needed an event the book couldn't have predicted. Something random. I grabbed my jacket and bolted out the door, down the creaking stairs, past the rhythmic thump, thump, thump of dryers, and into the rain-slicked street. I walked 10 blocks, past the usual bus stop, to a tiny, dingy pawn shop I'd never noticed before, tucked between a boarded-up bakery and a laundromat that wasn't Mrs. Gable's. The bell jangled as I pushed inside. Dust motes danced in the single shaft of gray light from a high window. The owner, a man with thick glasses and ink-stained fingers, barely looked up from a disassembled clock. "Can I help you?" he rasped. I need something specific. Tell me, what's the most worthless thing you have in here right now?" He blinked. "Worthless?" "Yeah, the thing nobody would ever buy. The thing you'd throw out tomorrow." He scratched his stubble, considering. Then he shuffled to a shelf crammed with junk and pulled out a small chipped ceramic figurine. A sad-looking frog wearing a top hat, one leg broken off at the knee. "This," he said, "paid $1 for it at an estate sale. Been here 15 years. No one wants the damn thing. You can have it for $1." I bought it. The cold chipped ceramic felt alien in my palm. I walked straight home, the rain plastering my hair to my forehead, the frog clutched tight. I didn't take the bus. I needed the walk. I needed the randomness of the rain, the specific ache in my left knee from the damp. I needed proof my choices were still mine. Back in the apartment, dripping on the thin rug, I opened the diary again. My hands were steady now, cold with certainty. I flipped to today's date, October 17th, 2026. Still blank. I turned to tomorrow's page, October 18th, 2026. Woke up with the ceramic frog on the pillow beside me, felt its cold weight, the crack along its back. Remembered buying it yesterday at Hank's Pawn and Loan on Elm and Fifth. The old man with the ink-stained fingers called it worthless. It isn't. It's proof. Proof that the book isn't just recording. It's anticipating. But today was blank. Why? Did I do something? Did I stop something? Or is the blankness the point? The silence before what? I hid the frog under the loose floorboard near the radiator. If someone comes looking for it, they won't find it. But I think they already know. I think the blank page is a warning or an invitation. The rain hasn't stopped. It sounds like fingers tapping on the window pane. Tapping, tapping, tapping. The entry cut off mid-sentence. The ink was smudged, as if the writer had been interrupted or had dropped the pen. I stared at the words. Hank's Pawn and Loan on Elm and Fifth. I'd never heard of it. I just walked until I found a pawn shop. It was on Elm and Fifth. I hadn't noticed the street sign. Hank. The owner hadn't given his name. The broken leg on the frog, the loose floorboard near the radiator. I'd never noticed a loose floorboard. But when I dropped to my knees and pried at the corner of the board Chloe had tripped over last Christmas, it lifted easily, dusty insulation beneath. And there, tucked in the corner, was a small, damp-stained envelope. Not the one from yesterday. This one was older, yellowed, addressed in that same lupin cursive. For when you find the blank page. My breath came in short gasps. I tore it open. Inside was a single sheet of paper covered in the same handwriting, but this wasn't an entry. It was a note. Mark. You're reading this because you found the gap, the blank page. That's where it starts. That's where you start fighting back. They don't like the gaps. They need the story to be seamless, continuous, predictable. The diary isn't a record. It's a leash. They feed it details, your routines, your fears, the trivial data points scraped from your life, and it constructs the narrative. It becomes your reality. But it can't construct what hasn't happened yet. Not truly, not when the subject resists. I was you 6 months ago. I found my blank page. I bought a spool of red thread from a gas station I'd never seen before. The diary described it perfectly the next day. I knew then it was watching, waiting. I started doing small things, random things, taking different buses, ordering different coffee, talking to strangers. The entries grew fuzzy, uncertain, sometimes wrong. That's when the tapping started. At first, just at night, like rain, then inside the walls, then inside my head. They don't like unpredictability. It frays the narrative. I hid this note where you'd look, where the pattern would lead you. They know you have the frog. They know about the floorboard. They know everything you do. But they don't know what you think. Not yet. That's the only space left. The gap. The blank page. Don't fill it for them. Don't let them write today. Burn the diary. Burn it now. Don't read tomorrow's entry. Don't give them the script. Run. Go somewhere they can't find the pattern. But hurry. The tapping gets louder when they're close. Listen. Can you hear it? Another mark. The paper slipped from my fingers. The silence in the apartment was absolute. No rain on the window, no hum from the fridge, just a low rhythmic thump, 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 coming from inside the wall beside the radiator, steady, deliberate, like a slow heartbeat or fingers tapping. I looked at the diary. Open on the table, tomorrow's entry lay exposed, the smudged ink, the interrupted sentence, tapping. The thumping in the wall sped up. Thump, 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 thump. Panic seized me. I grabbed the diary, its cold leather burning my palms. I stumbled to the tiny kitchenette, yanked open the drawer where I kept matches for the faulty pilot light on the stove. My hand shook violently as I struck one. The flame sputtered, died. Again. The match flared. I touched it to the corner of the first page. The paper didn't catch. The flame died the moment it touched the creamy page, leaving only a faint, acrid smell and a tiny black curl of ash. I tried again and again. The matches burned my fingers, but the pages remained pristine, unmarked, untouchable. The thumping in the wall was a frantic drumming now, shaking the loose floorboard under my feet. Dust sifted from the ceiling. I hurled the diary across the room. It hit the opposite wall with a soft thud and lay open on the floor. I ran to the window, fumbling with the stiff latch. Rain lashed the glass. The streetlights below cast long, watery shadows. Normal, mundane, safe. I turned back. The diary was gone from the floor. It sat on the table again, open, facing me. And today's page was no longer blank. Words were appearing, not written. Bleeding onto the page, dark, viscous ink spreading like a stain from the center of the paper, forming letters in that terrible, familiar hand. You tried to burn me. You always try to burn me. It never works. The story must be told. The pattern must hold. The red thread Mark dropped at the gas station. I picked it up. I followed it back to him. He screams nicely. You'll hear him soon, under the tapping. He thought he broke the pattern. He didn't. He just became part of a different chapter, a cautionary tale. Your blank page wasn't a gift. It was an error, a glitch, and glitches get corrected. Look behind you. I didn't move, couldn't move. The thumping in the wall had stopped, replaced by a new sound, a wet, ragged breathing coming from the corner behind the door, the corner where the shadows were deepest, the shadows that didn't quite match the shape of the room. They were thicker, longer, stretching towards me across the floorboards, defying the angle of the single overhead light. The ink on the page kept flowing, faster now, the letters jagged, urgent. Don't turn around, don't look, it makes it stronger. Remember the frog, the worthless thing. It wasn't worthless, it was a key, a way out, but you hit it. You played by their rules, you looked for the pattern, you found the gap. And gaps attract attention, the attention that lives between the lines, the attention that hungers for the spaces where the story frays. You think you're Mark Ellery, data processor, renter of a damp studio apartment, son of Eleanor who died of cancer in 19. You're not. You're the character, the protagonist. And protagonists have arcs. Yours is ending. Turn around. See what's been waiting in the blank space all along. See what writes the words when the pen drops. See? I didn't read the rest. I couldn't. The breathing in the corner had stopped. In its place was a soft, wet, clicking sound, like bones settling, and a smell. Old paper, yes, but beneath it, the coppery tang of blood and something else. Ozone, sharp and electric, like the air after lightning. My body moved without me. Slowly, stiffly, like a marionette with tangled strings, I turned my head. The corner was empty. Relief, sharp and dizzying, flooded me. Just shadows, just stress, just... The diary snapped shut with a sound like a gunshot. I whirled back to the table. The book lay closed. The silver clasp was latched. But where the clasp met the leather cover, dark liquid welled up. Not ink, thick, red. It dripped onto the floorboards with a soft, rhythmic plink, 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 like a slow heartbeat or fingers tapping on a window pane. I looked down at my hands. My fingers were stained with the same dark red. I hadn't touched the book since I threw it. I hadn't touched anything. The dripping slowed, stopped. The silence that followed was deeper than before. Heavy, expectant. The kind of silence that presses against your eardrums. Then from the empty corner behind the door, a whisper. Not a voice I recognized. Not human. It was the sound of pages turning rapidly in a vast dark library, the rustle of dry leaves in a forgotten grave, the static between radio stations. Page 1. It sighed. The words weren't heard with my ears. They vibrated in my teeth, in the marrow of my bones. Begin again. The green leather diary on the table began to vibrate, faintly at first, then violently, hopping against the wooden surface like a living thing trying to escape. The silver clasp glowed with a sickly, pale light. The red stain on the cover pulsed. I backed towards the window, my legs weak. The latch was still open a crack. Rain and cold air hissed through. Freedom, reality. Mrs. Gable's dryers thumped steadily downstairs, a normal sound, a real sound. I lunged for the window, wrenching it fully open. The roar of the city street below, distant car horns, a siren wailing blocks away, was the most beautiful noise I'd ever heard. I swung my leg over the sill, the rain instantly soaking my pants, the rusty fire escape cold and slick under my palm. I looked back one last time. The diary lay still on the table. The clasp was open again. The page was blank, but not empty. Shimmering faintly in the dim light, as if written in frost or smoke, words were coalescing. He jumps. He always jumps. The fire escape is rusted through on the third landing. The fall isn't far. Broken leg. Concussion. They take him to St. Vincent's. Room 412. The nurse with the kind eyes gives him painkillers. He dreams of red thread. He dreams of tapping. He dreams of the blank page waiting for him when he wakes. The story pauses, but it does not end. It never ends. It only waits for the next mark, the next gap, the next blank page to fill, to own, to consume. Sleep now, Mark. The pattern holds. The pattern is... I didn't read the rest. I dropped onto the fire escape, the metal groaning under my weight. I scrambled down, ignoring the slippery rungs, the rain stinging my eyes. I hit the alley behind Mrs. Gable's with a jarring thud that shot pain up my spine. I ran, past overflowing dumpsters, under flickering streetlights, not stopping until I was 10 blocks away, hunched under the awning of an all-night diner, gasping, soaked to the skin, my heart trying to burst free from my chest. Inside the warm, greasy-smelling diner, fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. A waitress with tired eyes and a name tag that read Darlene slid a menu across the Formica table. Rough night, hon? I nodded, unable to speak. My hands were still trembling. I stared at them, clean, no red stain, just rainwater. Can I get you some coffee? Hot. Coffee, I rasped. Black, please. She brought it in a thick white mug. The heat seeped into my palms, a grounding sensation. Real. Tangible. I wrapped my fingers around it, watching the steam curl upwards, the clatter of dishes, the low murmur of late-night customers, the smell of frying onions. It was all solid, uncomplicated. Now, I reached into my jacket pocket, pulling out my phone. The screen was cracked from the jump, but it powered on. 2:17 a.m. I scrolled through my contacts. Chloe. I pressed call. It rang and rang and rang. Straight to voicemail, her cheerful message, "Hey, it's Chloe. Leave a MSG." Sounded alien, hollow. I tried Mark from work. Same thing. Voicemail. I tried my landlord. Voicemail. Every number I dialed met the same dead end. No one was answering. Not at this hour, or not ever. Again. Paranoia, cold and slick, coiled in my gut. Was it just the hour? Or had the diary already rewritten them, erased their willingness to answer? I looked around the diner. Darlene was refilling ketchup bottles at the counter. An old man in a trucker hat dozed over a plate of cold eggs. A couple whispered fiercely in a booth near the window. Normal, all normal. Then I saw it. On the edge of my coffee mug, a tiny, almost invisible smudge. Dark red, like dried blood, or ink. I jerked my hand back as if burned. The mug clattered against the saucer. Darlene looked over, concerned. "You okay, hun? You look like you seen a ghost." I forced a smile. "Just tired. Long shift." She nodded slowly, her eyes lingering on my face a fraction too long. "You want to get some pie? Cherry's good." Her voice was warm, but her eyes, they held a flicker of something else. Recognition? Calculation? Or was I just seeing patterns in the static of my fear? I pushed the coffee away. Unfinished. "No, thanks. Just a coffee." I paid the bill in crumpled singles, my fingers brushing the worn counter. As I turned to leave, Darlene called after me, her voice suddenly flat, devoid of its earlier warmth. "You left this behind." She held up the ceramic frog, the one with the broken leg, the one I'd hidden under the floorboard. Its cold, chipped surface gleamed under the fluorescent lights. Its single, painted eye stared blankly at nothing. I froze. I don't know what that is." Darlene's smile didn't reach her eyes. "Sure you do, Mark. It's yours. Always was. You just forgot where you left it." She placed it gently on the counter. "Take it. Things have a way of finding their way back to where they belong, especially the worthless things." I backed out of the diner, the little brass bell jangling like a death knell above the door. The rain had lessened to a drizzle. The city street was empty. No cars, no distant sirens. No sound at all except the dripping of water from the awning and the frantic thudding of my own heart. I didn't look back at the diner window. I couldn't. I just walked fast, turning corners at random, putting distance between me and the frog, between me and the blank page, between me and the tapping that I could still feel vibrating in my teeth, even over the city sounds slowly returning. The rumble of a distant bus, the bark of a dog. I walked for hours. Dawn was a gray smear on the horizon when I found myself standing on a bridge overlooking the river. The water churned dark and cold below. The first commuter trains rattled past on the tracks beside me, shaking the railing under my hands. Normal life resuming. I leaned against the railing, breathing in the damp, metallic air. Exhaustion pulled at my bones. I was safe, out in the open, in the light. The diary couldn't follow me here, could it? I reached into my pocket, pulling out my phone again. The cracked screen. I needed to call someone, anyone, a crisis. Hotline, a police non-emergency line. I scrolled blindly, my thumb hovering over 911. Then I saw it, reflected in the dark, rain-streaked surface of the phone screen. Not my own haggard reflection. Behind me, standing perfectly still on the empty sidewalk, was a figure, tall, thin, dressed in a long, old-fashioned coat that seemed to absorb the gray dawn light. Its face was indistinct, blurred, like a photograph left out in the rain, but in its hand it held a book. Bound in cracked dark green leather, the silver clasp caught the weak light, and it was writing. Its hand moved swiftly across the open page, the pen a blur. I couldn't see the words in the reflection, but I felt them form in my own mind, cold and certain. He stands on the bridge, watching the water, thinking of jumping, thinking it would end the story. It wouldn't. It would only turn the page. He feels watched. He is right. He turns around now. He sees me. He always sees me. Then he runs. He always runs. Back to the beginning. Back to the blank page. The pattern resets. The story continues. Sleep now, Mark. The pattern. I whirled around. The sidewalk was empty. Utterly, completely empty. No figure, no coat, no green book, just wet pavement gleaming under the street lights, and the distant wail of a train whistle. I spun back to the railing, gripping it until my knuckles turned white. My breath came in ragged gasps. It wasn't real. A hallucination. Stress. Sleep deprivation. The lingering terror of the diary. I looked down at the churning river, dark water swallowing the reflection of the sky, swallowing everything. Then I saw it, floating gently on the current, caught in an eddy near the concrete piling, a small chipped ceramic frog. Its single painted eye stared up at the gray sky, one leg broken off at the knee. The phone slipped from my numb fingers, hitting the pavement with a sharp crack, the screen shattering completely. I didn't flinch. I just stared at the frog, bobbing on the dark water. From the pocket of my soaked jacket, a new sound began, faint at first, then louder, rhythmic, insistent. Thump, thump, thump. Not from the wall, not from the corner, from inside my own chest, my own heartbeat, but wrong, too slow, too heavy, like something else was beating inside me, something that had been waiting in the silence, something that knew the story by heart. I closed my eyes. The words formed behind my eyelids, written in that familiar looping hand on a field of perfect, terrifying white. Today's entry begins now, and this story ends here. The next one begins now. My therapist told me I don't exist. I rented a cheap room in an abandoned home because it was all I could afford, and because, if I'm honest, I like the idea. There's something about decay that feels honest, like the world finally admitting it's falling apart, just like the rest of us. The listing was sparse. Private room, utilities included, $350 a month, no questions asked. No photos, no address until after I wired the deposit. That should have been my first red flag, but I didn't have a job. My savings were bleeding out, and the last apartment I'd lived in had left me with mold in my lungs and a landlord who'd threatened to sue me for emotional damages after I reported him to housing inspection. So I said yes. I got a text with coordinates. A pin dropped in the woods 20 miles outside of Galesburg, Illinois. The house stood at the end of a gravel drive overgrown with thistle and wild sumac, its roof sagging like a spine bent by decades of weight. 2 stories, clapboard siding peeling in long gray strips, windows boarded or broken, one porch column snapped clean through and propped up with a rusted sawhorse. The front door hung open a few inches, swaying slightly in the late afternoon breeze as if someone or something had just stepped out. Inside, the air smelled of damp plaster, mouse droppings, and something sharper, like ozone after a lightning strike, or the metallic tang of blood left too long in the sink. My footsteps echoed hollowly across the warped floorboards. A narrow hallway led past 3 closed doors. At the end, a staircase spiraled up into shadow. A man stood beside it. He startled me, not because he moved, but because he hadn't been there a second before. One blink, empty space. Next blink, him. He was tall, gaunt, wearing a tweed jacket that might have been stylish in 1973, his hair thin and neatly combed, skin papery with age, but eyes startlingly bright, almost feverish. He smiled, not warmly, precisely, like a scalpel, finding its mark. "Elias," he said, not a question, a confirmation. I nodded. "You're the landlord?" "I am Dr. Arlen Voss," he replied, and yes, in a manner of speaking. He extended a hand. His grip was dry, cool, and lasted a beat too long. "The room is upstairs, last door on the left. You'll find it accommodating." He handed me an old brass key, tarnished, heavy, and turned without another word, vanishing into the darkness beneath the stairs. I called after him, about mail, about trash pickup, about anything. But no reply came. When I looked back, the space under the staircase was just a closet, empty. Dusty. Had he gone inside? I hadn't heard a door open. Upstairs, the hallway was narrower, the ceiling lower, the wood groaning underfoot like it resented being walked upon. The last door on the left opened with a reluctant creak. The room was small but clean. Too clean. A narrow bed with a faded quilt, a wooden desk, empty, except for a single drawer. A wardrobe with both doors slightly ajar. One window, its glass cracked but intact, looked out over the overgrown backyard and a crumbling stone well half swallowed by ivy. No electricity, no outlets. A kerosene lantern sat on the desk, full, a box of matches beside it. I dropped my duffel bag and sat on the bed. The springs shrieked. Outside, the wind picked up, rattling the window pane. I lit the lantern. The flame wavered, casting long, trembling shadows. That's when I noticed the writing, not on the walls, not carved into the wood, on the glass. Someone had written on the inside of the window pane in what looked like grease pencil or charcoal, smudged but legible. "He watches through the walls when you sleep. Don't turn the light off. Don't close your eyes before the flame dies." I stared at it, wiped it with my sleeve. It didn't budge, not smudged, not even a streak. Like it had been etched into the glass itself, though there were no scratches beneath my fingertips. I lit a cigarette. I chain-smoked then before the coughs got worse, and opened a window a few inches to let the smoke out. The night air was cold, still. No crickets, no owls, just silence, thick and absolute. Then a sound, a tap. From the wall behind the wardrobe, 2 seconds of quiet, then another. Tap, tap, tap. Rhythmic, deliberate, not random settling, not a branch. This was knocking. I stood, walked to the wardrobe, pulled the doors open. Inside, empty hangers, a moth-eaten coat on the floor, and, on the back panel, a child's handprint in dust. Fresh, as if pressed there minutes ago. I turned, heart thudding. The lantern flame dipped low, then flared. In its sudden surge of light, I saw a face in the window, pressed against the glass from the outside, pale, gaunt, lips parted in a silent smile, eyes wide, black, empty, no whites, no pupils, just void. I stumbled back, knocked the lantern off the desk. The glass chimney shattered. The flame guttered, died. Darkness. I fumbled for the matches, struck one. The flame caught, trembling. I held it up. The window was empty. No face, no smudges, nothing. I spent the night sitting upright on the bed, back against the wall, knees drawn to my chest, the last match clutched in my sweating palm. I didn't sleep. I barely breathed. Every creak of the house was a footstep, every draft a sigh against my neck. At dawn, gray light seeped through the cracks in the boards outside. I opened the window fully. The air smelled of wet earth and rotting leaves. The well in the yard looked deeper than it had the day before. I found Dr. Voss in the kitchen. He was boiling water on a butane stove, humming softly. Something modal, dissonant, like Gregorian chant played backward. A single mug sat beside him. Steam curled from its rim. "Good morning, Elias," he said, not turning. "Sleep well?" I didn't answer, just stared at the back of his head, at the way his scalp showed through the fine strands of hair, at how his neck seemed too long, too thin, like a bird's. He poured the water into the mug, stirred, turned. His eyes weren't just bright now. They glinted, not with light, with something else, like there was glass behind them, or film. "Tea?" he offered. I declined. He smiled, not unkindly. "You're tense. Understandable. New environment. Unfamiliar stimuli. The mind seeks patterns, even where none exist." He sipped. "Have you ever considered therapy?" That's how it began. Not with an ad, not with a referral. Just a quiet question in a ruined kitchen, steam rising between us like a veil. I said yes. What else was I going to say? He told me his office was in the basement. Unconventional, I know, but quiet, undisturbed, ideal for deep work. The basement door was behind the stairs, low, heavy, reinforced with iron bands. It opened with a groan that vibrated in my teeth. The stairs descended into absolute black. "Lights are on a timer," he said. "They'll come on when you reach the bottom." I went down, 10 steps, 11, 12. Click! Fluorescent tubes flickered overhead, buzzing to life. The room was windowless, concrete-walled, 10 feet square, a single chair in the center, black leather, high-backed, bolted to the floor. Beside it, a small table with a glass of water, a notepad, a pen. No desk, no couch, no diplomas on the wall, just the chair and the mirror. It covered the entire far wall, floor to ceiling, edge to edge, framed in brushed steel. I sat. Dr. Voss didn't sit. He stood beside the mirror, hands clasped behind its back, watching me with that same precise smile. "Tell me, Elias," he began, voice soft, hypnotic. "When did you first notice the gaps?" Gaps? In memory, in sensation, in continuity. He tilted his head, like missing frames in a film, a blink, and suddenly you're elsewhere. You don't recall walking there. You don't recall deciding to go. You just arrive. I thought of the night before, the face in the window, the knocking, the way I'd known. The writing was on the glass before I saw it. Yes, I admitted. He nodded. Good. Honesty is the first fracture we must widen to let the light in. He stepped closer. Now, look at the mirror. I did. My reflection stared back, pale, dark circles under my eyes, hair unkempt. But something was wrong. My reflection wasn't blinking in sync with me. I blinked. It blinked after, a half-second delay. I raised my right hand. It raised its left. No, it should raise its left. That's how mirrors work. But I lowered my hand. It kept its hand raised. Smiling, not my smile. Smaller, sharper. I whipped my head toward Dr. Voss. He hadn't moved, still standing by the mirror, still smiling. Don't look away, he said gently. The dissociation intensifies with avoidance. I turned back. The reflection was gone. The mirror showed only the empty room behind me, the chair, the table, the stairs. But no, wait, the chair wasn't empty. Someone was sitting in it, slumped, head lolling, one arm dangling over the side, a man in a gray hoodie, jeans, scuffed sneakers, my clothes, my body. I stood, staggered back, hit the wall. Sit down, Elias, Dr. Voss said. Calm, unmoved. I shook my head. That's me. No, he said. That's the vessel, the placeholder, the echo. He stepped in front of the mirror, blocking my view. You see, Elias, consciousness isn't generated. It's captured. Like radio waves, like static on a dead channel, the brain doesn't produce the self. It tunes to it. And sometimes the signal degrades. Sometimes the frequency shifts. He reached into his jacket, pulled out a small device, black, smooth, no buttons, no seams, like obsidian shaped by water. This, he said, is a resonator. It stabilizes the carrier wave. He held it out. Hold it, just for a moment. I didn't want to, but my hand moved anyway. Reached, took it, cold, heavy, humming faintly, not in my ears, but inside my skull. A low subsonic drone that made my teeth ache. The mirror flickered. The image of my body in the chair dissolved like smoke. In its place, static. Black and white noise rolling and churning like an old TV with no signal. Then a shape emerged. A silhouette. Featureless. Humanoid. But wrong. Limbs too long, head too narrow, neck bent at an impossible angle. It stood in a reflection, facing me, though I was facing the mirror. It raised a hand, not to wave, to point at me at my chest. Dr. Voss's voice came from far away. You've been fading for months, Elias. Longer, perhaps. You stopped recognizing your own face in photos. You forgot your mother's voice. You'd reach for your keys and find them already in your hand, but you didn't remember picking them up. You thought it was stress, dementia, sleep deprivation. He stepped closer. It wasn't. The silhouette in the mirror took a step forward, not toward the glass, through it, its fingers pressed against the surface from the inside, the glass bulging inward like rubber. Your signal is weak, Dr. Voss whispered. The resonance is failing. You're slipping out of phase, and when the dissonance reaches critical threshold, he paused, smiled. You cease to exist. The glass rippled like water. The silhouette's hand broke through, gray, translucent, veins like cracks in porcelain. I dropped the resonator. It hit the floor and didn't bounce. It sank, sinking into the concrete like it was mud, vanishing in seconds. The silhouette lunged, not at me, through me, Cold, beyond cold, like liquid nitrogen poured into my veins. My vision whited out. My ears filled with a high-pitched whine, then silence. Then I was sitting in the chair, my hands on my knees, my breath shallow. Dr. Voss stood before me, notepad in hand, pen poised. "How do you feel?" he asked. I opened my mouth. No sound came. I tried again. My throat worked, but no voice, just air. Panic surged. I clutched my neck, felt the Adam's apple rise and fall. But nothing. Dr. Voss nodded. The aphasia is progressing, expected. As the self destabilizes, language centers degrade first, then motor control, then autonomic functions. He scribbled something. "You're losing cohesion, Elias. You're becoming noise." I stood, tried to run. My legs wouldn't obey. They moved, yes, but slowly, jerkily, like a film skipping frames. One step, two, then blackout. I was at the top of the basement stairs. How? I didn't remember climbing. I turned, looked down. The basement door was closed, locked. From the inside, a tap came. Then another. Tap, tap, tap. The same rhythm as before. I fled upstairs, slammed my bedroom door, locked it, though the lock was rusted, useless. I stared at the window. The writing was back, but changed. "He's in the walls now. He's in the floor. He's in your breath. Turn off the light. Let him in. It hurts less that way." I backed away, sat on the bed. My hands were trembling. I raised them, looked at my palms. The skin, it wasn't solid. In the lantern light, it shimmered, like heat haze over asphalt, like a signal losing strength. I touched my face. My fingers passed through my cheek for a fraction of a second. Not pain, not fear, just absence, a hole where I should be. That night, I didn't fight sleep. I lay down, blew out the lantern. Darkness. Then a sound. Not knocking. Breathing. From the wardrobe. Slow. Wet. Ragged. Not mine. I didn't move. Didn't breathe. The wardrobe doors creaked open. Something stepped out. I didn't look. I couldn't. But I felt it. Cold air pooling around my feet. The mattress dipping. Not at my side, but beneath me, as if something were climbing up through the bed. A hand, dry, papery, familiar, rested on my chest, not pressing, just anchoring, like a technician securing a cable. A voice, my voice, but hollow, distant, like it was coming from a speaker buried deep underground, whispered in my ear. "Let go. You were never here to begin with." I tried to scream. Nothing came out. I tried to move. My body didn't respond. But my eyes opened. Not I opened them. They opened. And in the darkness, I saw myself, standing beside the bed, pale, gaunt, smiling, wearing my face, wearing my clothes. But wrong. The eyes, black, empty, the mouth too wide. It leaned down. Its breath smelled of damp earth and static. It whispered, "Thank you for the room." Then silence, absolute. I tried to think, but thoughts unraveled, like threads pulled from a sweater. Mother's name? Gone? My birthday? Static. The color of my eyes. The last thing I knew was the sound of a key turning in the lock. The bedroom door opened. Footsteps. Dr. Voss's voice, calm, clinical. "Session complete. Vessel decommissioned. Signal stabilized." A pause. Then softer. "Welcome back, Elias." And then nothing. No darkness, no light, no breath, no thought, no I. Just empty frequency, static on a dead channel, and somewhere, far away, A new tenant arriving at the house in the woods, unpacking a single duffel bag, lighting a kerosene lantern, seeing the writing on the window for the first time, and wondering with a shiver why it feels so familiar, why the face in the glass looks exactly like theirs, why, when they knock on the wall behind the wardrobe, something knocks back, and why, when they finally sit in the black leather chair in the basement and look into the mirror, the reflection doesn't blink, doesn't breathe, just watches and waits for the signal to fade, for the vessel to weaken, for the moment it can step through and become real again. With that, the story is over. Let's move to the next story. The new medication stops my nightmares. Now, something wants me asleep forever. I haven't slept in 72 hours. I'm currently sitting in my bathtub, wearing all of my clothes, with the cold water running over my legs. I have a safety pin jammed into the web of skin between my thumb and index finger. Every time my eyelids droop, every time the gray fog starts to roll in at the edges of my vision, I twist the pin. The pain is the only thing keeping me here. The pain is the only anchor I have left. If you're listening to this, if you're one of the people who saw my initial vlog about the clinical trial, consider this a retraction, a warning. Do not take the pills. Do not go to the Somnus Institute. If you have the bottle with the blue label and the white child-proof cap, flush it. Flush it right now. My name is Julian, and I was a chronic parasomniac. That's the polite medical term. The reality is that for the last 10 years, sleep has been a torture chamber. I didn't just have bad dreams. I had night terrors that were so visceral, so physically demanding, that I would wake up with scratches on my face and blood in my mouth. I dreamt of drowning in oil. I dreamt of being dissected by faceless surgeons while paralyzed. I tried everything. Melatonin, valerian root, prescription Ambien therapy, hypnosis. Nothing worked. The Ambien just made me forget the screaming, but my neighbors didn't forget. I was on the verge of eviction and losing my job as a data entry clerk because I couldn't focus on the screen without hallucinating spiders. Then I found the ad. It was a targeted ad on social media, one of those things that pops up after you've spent till 4 a.m. Googling how to surgically remove the sleep center of the brain. It said, the Somnus Institute, Phase 3, Clinical Trial, Eliminate REM Cycles, Sleep in Silence. It sounded too good to be true. Eliminate REM? That's where the dreams live. If you cut out the rapid eye movement, you cut out the monsters. I went in for the screening on a rainy Tuesday. The facility was in a brutalist concrete building downtown, the kind of place that looks like a bunker. The interior was sterile white. It smelled of antiseptic and lavender, a thick, cloying lavender scent that stuck to the back of your throat. Dr. Eris Thorne was the lead researcher. He was a man who looked like he hadn't blinked in a decade. His skin was pale, almost translucent, and his movements were slow, deliberate, like he was underwater. The drug is called Morphinex, he told me, sliding a waiver across the metal desk. It doesn't just suppress brain activity, Julian. It redirects it. It creates a chemical barrier between your consciousness and the subthalamic triggers of fear. It puts you in a state of suspended animation. No dreams, no movement, just void. Void sounds nice, I said. I signed the paper without reading the fine print. I would have signed a contract for my soul if it meant 8 hours of peace. He gave me a bottle, 30 pills, oval-shaped, Vanta Black. They absorbed the light. "Take 30 minutes before bed," Thorne said. "Ensure you are in a safe, locked environment. The sedation is absolute." That night, I took the first pill. I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling fan. I expected to feel drowsy. I expected that warm, fuzzy feeling you get from whiskey or Benadryl. That didn't happen. Instead, at exactly the 30-minute mark, the world just turned off. There was no transition, no drifting off. It was like someone pulled the power cord on reality. 1 second, I was looking at the fan. The next second, there was nothing. No light, no sound, no body. I wasn't floating. I wasn't existing. I was simply erased. Then, snap. My eyes flew open. Sunlight was streaming through the window. The birds were singing. I looked at the clock. 9 a.m. I had slept for 10 straight hours. I sat up. I felt incredible. My mind was sharp. My body felt light, energized. No grogginess, no lingering fear. I checked my sheets. No sweat, no tears. I checked my mouth. No blood. I cried. I actually sat there and wept tears of joy. It was a miracle. For the first week, life was perfect. I was crushing it at work. I cleaned my apartment. I started jogging. Every night, I took the black pill, ceased to exist for 10 hours, and woke up reborn. The first sign that something was wrong happened on day 8. I woke up, but I didn't open my eyes immediately. I was lingering in that warm, comfortable state between sleep and wakefulness. I felt a weight on the bed. It wasn't heavy. It was a subtle depression in the mattress, right beside my hip, like someone was sitting there watching me. I snapped my eyes open. The room was empty. The depression in the mattress slowly rose back up as I watched. I dismissed it. Hypnopompic hallucination, a residual trick of the brain. I got up, made coffee, and went to work. But that night, I hesitated before taking the pill, just for a second. The memory of that weight on the bed gave me a shiver. But the fear of the old nightmares was stronger. I swallowed the pill. Click. Darkness. I woke up the next morning on the floor. I was lying on the hardwood 3 feet from my bed. I was curled in a fetal position, shivering. My bedroom window was wide open. It had been 40 degrees last night. I scrambled up, shutting the window. I checked my body. My feet were dirty, not dusty from the apartment floor, dirty. There was mud caked under my toenails. Soil. I live on the 4th floor. I called Dr. Thorne. The receptionist told me he was unavailable, but that parasomniac ambulation was a rare but known side effect. She told me to lock my bedroom door and hide the key if I was worried. "It's working though, right?" she asked. "No nightmares?" "No nightmares," I agreed. "Just blankness." "Then continue the dosage." I did. I was an addict to the silence. Night 12. The turning point. I took the pill. The darkness took me. But this time, the darkness wasn't empty. Usually, the sleep was instantaneous. But this time, I felt a sensation of time passing. I was in the void, unable to see, unable to move, but I was conscious. I was floating in a thick, viscous fluid. It felt like warm oil. It was filling my ears, my nose, and I heard something. It wasn't a sound exactly. It was a vibration against my skin, a low, thrumming frequency that rattled my bones. "Do not wake up." The voice was everywhere. It sounded like tectonic plates grinding together. "Stay. Beneath." I tried to scream, but I had no mouth. I tried to thrash, but I had no limbs. I was just a spark of consciousness trapped in amber. Then I felt a hand, a massive hand, larger than my entire body, closed around me. The fingers were soft, gelatinous, but strong. It squeezed me gently. It wasn't trying to crush me. It was cradling me. You are safe here. I fought it. I willed myself to wake up. I focused everything I had on the concept of eyes open. I woke up screaming. I was in my bed. My sheets were soaked, not with sweat, but with a thick, clear slime that smelled of salt water and lavender. I sat up, hyperventilating. I looked at the clock. It was 4 p.m. I had been asleep for 18 hours. My phone had 40 missed calls from work. I had missed my shift. I had missed the entire day. I ran to the bathroom to wash the slime off. As I scrubbed my skin raw under the shower, I saw the bruise. It wrapped around my torso. 4 distinct, long finger marks. And a thumb. But the bruise was massive. If the hand was real, the owner would have been 20 feet tall. I flushed the rest of the pills. I was done. I didn't care about the nightmares. I'd take the demons over the giant in the void. That was 3 days ago. Here's the problem. Morphinex doesn't leave your system. The first night without the pill, I sat on my couch, drinking Red Bull, watching TV. I was determined to pull an all-nighter to reset my cycle. Around 3 a.m., the lights in my apartment dimmed. Not a power surge. They didn't flicker. They just got heavy. The light itself seemed to become solid, turning a sickly, jaundiced yellow. The air in the room grew thick. It became hard to breathe, like the oxygen had been replaced with syrup. I stood up, dizzy. My limbs felt like lead. Gravity. The gravity in the room shifted. It wasn't pulling me down to the floor anymore. It was pulling me toward the bedroom. I grabbed the door frame of the kitchen. My fingers slipped. I was being dragged, my feet sliding across the linoleum toward the dark open maw of my bedroom door. "No!" I shouted, but my voice was muffled like I was shouting underwater. I looked into the bedroom. The bed was there, but it wasn't a bed anymore. The mattress had split open. In the center, where the sheets should be, was a hole. A black, swirling vortex of that same oily liquid I had felt in the dream. And rising out of the hole were arms, dozens of them, long, gray, translucent arms. They were waving gently like sea anemones. They were reaching for me. "Come back." The voice vibrated through the floorboards. "The waking hurts. We heal. You." I grabbed a steak knife from the counter. I stabbed it into the doorframe to anchor myself. The pull was immense. It felt like a vacuum seal trying to suck me in. "Leave me alone!" I screamed. The arms in the bedroom stretched. They elongated, crossing the distance of the living room in seconds. They were wet. They dripped that lavender-smelling slime. One of them wrapped around my ankle. It didn't feel like a monster. It didn't feel violent. It felt loving. It felt like a mother picking up a child. It was warm. It was comforting. And that was the most terrifying part. A wave of euphoria hit me. My eyelids fluttered. I felt an overwhelming desire to just let go, to let it drag me into the mattress, to sink into the oil and sleep for 1,000 years. Just sleep. "Julian." I stabbed the arm with the steak knife. It didn't bleed blood. It hissed, releasing a jet of black steam. The grip loosened. I scrambled back, kicking at the thing. I ran out the front door into the hallway of the apartment building. The hallway was normal. The gravity was normal. I haven't gone back inside. I went to the hospital, but I couldn't tell them the truth. They put me in the psych ward, and in the psych ward, they sedate you. If they sedate me, I'm gone. I know that with absolute certainty. If I fall asleep again, I am never waking up. The thing has tasted me now. It has a grip on my mind. I broke into the Somnus Institute last night. I needed answers. I needed an antidote. The building was abandoned. It looked like it had been abandoned for years. Dust everywhere, paper scattered. I found Dr. Thorne's office. I found his file on the Morphinex trial. It wasn't a drug trial. I found a journal on his desk. The last entry was dated 6 months ago. Subject 14 has successfully bridged. The compound does not inhibit the amygdala. It thins the membrane. We were wrong about sleep. Sleep isn't a biological reset. Sleep is a location. It is a dimension of entropy. We have been building a dam against it for millennia, waking up to keep the waters back. Morphinex breaks the dam. There was another note, scrawled in shaky handwriting in the margin. They are lonely. They are so huge and so lonely, they just want to hold us. I found Dr. Thorne in the next room. He was sitting in a chair. He was dead. But he didn't look dead. He looked preserved. He was encased in a cocoon of hardened gray translucent material like amber, but soft. His eyes were closed. There was a smile on his face, a look of pure, blissful ecstasy. Roots or veins of that gray material were growing out of his ears and into the floor, pulsating. He had become part of the building, part of the hive. I ran. Now I'm here, in the bathtub of a motel room 3 towns over. The water is freezing. My skin is blue, but the cold is fading. I can feel the warmth starting in my chest. It's not the water warming up. It's the internal warmth, the sedation. The shadows in the corners of the bathroom are starting to move. They aren't casting correctly. They are detaching from the wall. I can smell the lavender. It's getting harder to type this. My fingers are stiff. I just saw the reflection in the mirror. My pupils are gone. My eyes are entirely black. And behind me, in the reflection, the shower curtain is bulging. Something is standing in the tub with me. I can feel the heat radiating off it. I am going to turn around now. I have the safety pin. I have to stay awake. But God, I am so tired, and the voice is right. The waking world is so painful. It's so cold and sharp and loud. Maybe just a nap. Just 5 minutes. The curtain is opening. It's beautiful. Good night. And this story ends here. The next one begins now. I can hear my house breathing. It started with the click. Not a loud sound, not the groan of old pipes or the pop of cooling wood that every century-old house makes as night falls. This was different, precise, biological, a soft, wet click, click, like a tongue detaching from the roof of a mouth. It came from the wall beside my bed. 2:17 a.m., always 2:17 a.m. I lay frozen, blanket pulled to my chin, listening to the silence after. The ordinary night sounds, the distant hum of the city, the sigh of wind in the eaves were still there, but beneath them now was a new layer, a slow, deep inhalation, a long, shuddering draw of air through unseen passages. The floorboards beneath my mattress vibrated faintly, a low thrumming resonance that traveled up my spine. Thrum, 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 like a heartbeat, but slower, deeper, too deep. I told myself it was the furnace, a new rhythmic fault in the ancient boiler in the basement. But the furnace hadn't worked in years. Management called it decommissioned, a polite word for dead. The next night, the click came earlier, 1:48 a.m., and the breath was louder, a slow, wet intake like bellows filling with thick fluid. The wall seemed to expand, just a fraction. The floral wallpaper, faded olive and rust, the same pattern as the sycamore house, stretched taut, the seams groaning softly. Then the exhale, a long sighing release of air that carried a scent, damp earth, ozone, and something else, coppery, like old blood. I pressed my ear to the wall, cold plaster. Then, thrum, a vibration, stronger, closer, not in the wall, behind it, something vast, something alive. I moved out the next day, packed a single suitcase, left the lease unsigned on the kitchen counter, didn't look back as I walked down the cracked sidewalk, the suitcase wheels rattling over uneven concrete. The city air, thick with exhaust and fried food, felt clean, sterile, safe. I found a sublet. Oh, modern high-rise apartment downtown. Steel and glass, elevators, key-card access, no basements, no attics, no history, just clean lines and the constant reassuring drone of human activity. The first night was silent, blissfully, profoundly silent. No click, no thrum. Just the muffled thump of bass from the apartment above, the hiss of the radiator, the distant wail of a siren. I slept deeply, dreamlessly. I woke at dawn, feeling lighter, hopeful. Then I made coffee. Standing at the sleek minimalist counter, steam rising from the kettle, I looked out the floor-to-ceiling window at the city waking up. And I heard it, faint, muffled by double-paned glass, but unmistakable. Click. From inside, the wall beside the refrigerator, a pause, then the slow, wet inhalation. Thrum, thrum, thrum. The vibration traveled up the stainless steel counter, making the coffee mug rattle softly against the ceramic tile. I dropped the kettle. Scalding water splashed my ankles. I didn't feel the burn. I just stood there staring at the wall. The wallpaper was gone. Smooth, painted drywall. But the sound, the rhythm, it was the same. It had followed me. The high-rise apartment lasted 3 days. I moved again. A tiny studio above a 24-hour laundromat, constant noise, washing machines agitating, dryers tumbling, a wall of sound to drown out the silence, to drown out it. The first night, the rhythmic thump of the dryers was a comfort, white noise, a shield. At 3:02 a.m., the dryers cycled off. Silence crashed down. And beneath it, the click, louder, closer, not from the wall this time, from under the floor, a deep, wet click, 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 like massive valves opening. Then the breath, a long, shuddering inhalation that made the floorboards flex beneath my thin mattress. The vibration was stronger now, a physical pressure in my chest. The scent of damp earth and copper filled the small room, overpowering the smell of detergent. I pressed my ear to the floor. The wood was cold. Then, thrum! A deep, resonant pulse, not a heartbeat, a lungs, something enormous, buried deep, drawing breath. I didn't sleep again. I sat in the armchair by the window, wrapped in a blanket, watching the streetlights glow through the grimy glass, listening to the house breathe. In, the floor dips slightly. The walls sigh outward. Out. The floor rises. The walls contract. A faint sigh of air escaping unseen vents. It had a rhythm, a pattern, a cycle. I started timing it. Inhale, 17 seconds. Hold, 3 seconds. Exhale, 22 seconds. Pause, 5 seconds. 67 seconds per breath. 43 breaths per hour. 132 breaths per day. A living thing, buried beneath the city. And my apartments, my rooms, weren't just on it. They were part of it, like lice on a sleeping giant. The dreams started that week. Not of Elias, not of mirrors or reels, of roots. Vast, pale, fibrous things, thicker than subway tunnels, pulsing with a slow, blue-tinged light, weaving through the bedrock beneath the city. They converged, twisted together, formed a colossal branching network, a nervous system, a circulatory system. At the center, deep, deep down, where the pressure would crush steel, where the temperature would melt lead. A chamber, not a cave, a thorax. Ribs of black basalt arched impossibly high. A diaphragm of layered shale and granite, flexing with each ponderous breath, and suspended in the center, bathed in that same faint blue light, a heart, not muscle, not stone, a colossal spinning reel, pale, veined, glistening, eyes blinking slowly in the sprocket holes. The hum was deafening here, not a sound, a pressure, a fundamental frequency vibrating the very atoms of existence, and standing before the reel, impossibly small, impossibly calm, was Elias. He didn't look at the reel, he looked up, through miles of rock and root and resonating bone, straight at me. His lips moved, no sound reached me in the dream, but the words resonated in my bones, in roots, in the thrumming diaphragm. You hear it now? Good. Listen closer. It's not breathing around you, Cassian. He raised a hand, not in greeting, but in benediction. You're breathing with it. I woke, gasping, not for air, for silence. My hand was pressed flat against my chest, feeling my own heartbeat. Thump, 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 thump. But beneath it, fainter, slower, deeper, another rhythm. Thrum, thrum, thrum. Synchronized. My breath hitched. I took a deliberate inhale. The floor beneath me dipped. I exhaled. The floor rose. I wasn't just in the house. I was part of its breath. A tiny temporary lung in a vast slumbering body. Panic, cold and absolute, seized me. I tore the apartment apart, ripped up the thin carpet, pried at the floorboards with a butter knife, scoured the walls with a flashlight, looking for seams, for vents, for anything. Nothing, just plaster, plywood, insulation. The sound came from everywhere and nowhere. It was the structure. The building was the organism, and I was inside it, like a cell, like a thought. I went to the roof, stood on the gravel surface, the city spread out below me, a glittering, indifferent nervous system of its own. Wind whipped my hair. The cold air burned my lungs. Silence, just the wind. I closed my eyes, listened. Beneath the wind, the traffic, the distant sirens, there it was, faint, muffled by concrete and steel, but undeniable. Click. From the vent stack beside me, a deep, wet inhalation. The gravel beneath my feet vibrated. Thrum, thrum, thrum. I wasn't escaping. I was just moving to a different part of the lung. The final move was desperate. A cabin, deep in the woods, 2 hours north of the city. No electricity, no plumbing, just wood stove, well water, and silence. Real silence. The kind that rings in your ears. The realtor, a cheerful woman named Beth, handed me the keys. Place has been empty for years. Solid bones, though. Good bones. She said it with a smile, unaware of the chill that went down my spine. Good bones. I drove through the night, the headlights cutting tunnels through the black pines. The cabin was exactly as advertised. Small, sturdy, log walls, a stone chimney. Surrounded by towering firs, the air thick with the scent of pine resin and damp earth. Peace. I stepped inside. The silence was profound, deep, a physical weight. I dropped my bag, sat on the rough-hewn wooden chair, closed my eyes, listened. No traffic, no sirens, no hum of appliances, just the wind in the pines, the creak of the cabin settling, and then a soft, wet click. From the stone fireplace, a pause, then a slow, deep inhalation. The log walls groaned softly, expanding. The scent of damp earth and copper filled the small space. Thrum, thrum, thrum. The vibration traveled up the chair legs into my bones. It wasn't following me. It was the world, the cabin, the woods, the bedrock beneath the soil, all part of the same vast, slumbering thing. I walked to the fireplace, knelt, pressed my ear to the cold stone. The click was louder here, closer. Then the breath, a long, shuddering draw that seemed to pull the air from my own lungs, and beneath it, the hum, the same deep, resonant thrum. The blue light wasn't visible here, not yet, but I could feel it, pulsing in the stone, pulsing in the roots of the trees outside, pulsing in the marrow of my own bones. I sat by the cold hearth all night, not sleeping, listening, mapping the breath. Inhale, 17 seconds. Hold, 3 seconds. Exhale, 22 seconds. Pause, 5 seconds. 67 seconds. The same, always the same. At dawn, weak gray light filtering through the dusty window, I knew there was no escape, no silence to find. The breath wasn't in the houses. The houses were in the breath. The city was built on its bones. The woods grew from its skin. And I was just a flicker of consciousness in its vast, dreaming mind. A thought it was having, a memory it was replaying. The real, deep in the thorax of the world, spinning on, storing names, storing lives, storing me. As the first rays of sun touched the pine tops, I walked outside. The air was crisp, clean, smelling of frost and resin. I stood in the clearing, closed my eyes, took a deep breath. The forest held its breath with me. I exhaled. The trees sighed. Thrum, thrum, thrum. I opened my eyes, looked down at my hands. The cut on my palm, the one from the mug, was gone. In its place, etched into the skin, faint but clear, like a brand made of fine blue light, were 2 words. Breathe deep. I didn't fight it. I couldn't. I tilted my head back, opened my mouth, and took the deepest breath I could. The world breathed with me. The cabin groaned, the pines swayed, the earth vibrated, and deep below in the chamber of black basalt, the colossal reel spun faster. The eyes in the sprocket holes blinked all at once. The scariest part isn't hearing the house breathe. It's realizing as the rhythm syncs with your own heartbeat, as the vibration becomes the only thing holding your bones together, that the breath you're taking isn't yours. It's the world's, and it's been waiting for you to finally inhale, to finally become part of the silence, to finally join the dream, to finally remember you were never the listener. You were always the song. And this story ends here. The next one begins now. There's another version of me that only exists when the lights are off. I rented the attic room because it cost less than my weekly grocery budget. Desperation makes you overlook peeling wallpaper and floorboards that groan like dying things. The realtor, a man named Finch, with nicotine-stained fingers and breath smelling of stale coffee, handed me a rusted key. Lights flicker sometimes, he'd warned, avoiding my eyes. Wiring's old, but you'll be alone. Perfect for quiet folks. The house stood crooked on Sycamore Street, its windows boarded like blinded eyes, paint blistered by decades of neglect. My deposit was 3 months' rent in cash. No questions asked. No lease. Just Finch's yellowed receipt and the echo of his boots retreating down the overgrown path. The first night, I lit every lamp I owned. A thrift store desk lamp, 2 flickering candles, even my phone flashlight taped to the dresser. Shadows still pooled in the corners, thick and watchful. I slept fitfully, jolting awake at 3:17 a.m. to absolute darkness. The lamps had died, not dimmed, died. In the suffocating black, I heard breathing, not mine, slow, deliberate, coming from the foot of the bed. I froze, sweat chilling my spine. Then a floorboard creaked near the closet. I fumbled for my phone, thumb jabbing the power button. Light flooded the room. Empty. But the air smelled faintly of ozone and wet soil, and the desk chair was turned toward the closet, though I'd left it facing the window. I blamed faulty wiring. I bought extra bulbs. I slept with the hallway light on, the door propped open with a chair. It didn't help. The darkness always won. One night, I woke to the sound of pages turning. My journal lay open on the nightstand. By phone light, I saw new writing in the margins of yesterday's entry, a messy scrawl, utterly unlike my own neat script. You leave crumbs. I clean them. My stomach dropped. I'd locked the journal in my suitcase that morning. I checked. The lock, undisturbed, but the pages were damp, as if handled by cold, wet fingers. The next day, I found footprints in the thin layer of dust on the attic floorboards. Not mine. Smaller, barefoot, leading from the window to my bed. The window was latched from the inside. That afternoon, I bought a heavy-duty flashlight and a padlock for the door. Finch called while I was installing it. "Settling in?" he asked. His voice was too casual. "Heard the lights act up. Happened to the last tenant, too. Quiet girl. Left suddenly. Left her things." When I pressed him, he hung up. I drove to the county records office. The house had been empty for 12 years. No recent tenants, no quiet girl. That night, I locked the door, barricaded it with a dresser, and sat on the bed with my flashlight beam aimed at the window. I didn't sleep. At exactly 2 a.m., the lights died. Not just my lamps. The street lights outside vanished too, plunging the world into a darkness so absolute it felt solid. The flashlight beam guttered like a dying candle, then snuffed out. In the black, I heard movement, soft, wet, like bare feet on damp wood, then whispering. My own voice, but distorted, lower, slower, dripping with contempt. "You think locks stop me? I am the dark. I am the space between your breaths." The whisper came from right beside my ear. I lashed out blindly. My fist hit nothing, but something icy brushed my wrist. I screamed, fumbling for the light switch. Nothing worked. I used my phone, shattered screen casting jagged light. The room was empty, but the dresser had been pushed aside. The door stood wide open, and on my pillow lay a single, waterlogged maple leaf. It was October. Maple trees don't shed leaves in dry attics. The next morning, I called in sick to my data entry job. I needed proof this wasn't madness. I set up my phone to record audio overnight, placing it on the dresser. I left all lights on, the door unlocked, the chair pulled away. "If you're real," I whispered to the empty room, "show me." I slept on the floor, back against the wall, knife in hand. At 1:48 a.m., the recording captured it. First, the lights cutting out with a sharp click, then silence, then the sound of drawers opening and closing, slow, methodical. My dresser, my clothes rustling. Then my voice, calm and cold. "You fold your socks wrong, left on top, always." A pause, the sound of fabric being refolded precisely. Then footsteps circling the bed, stopping. The whisper again, inches from the phone's mic. "He's afraid of the dark, afraid of me, but he's the reason I exist. His fear feeds me. His loneliness shaped me." A wet chuckle. "Tomorrow I'll wear his skin in the light, just for a moment, to see if it fits." I deleted the recording, then re-listened, then deleted it again. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. That evening I sat in the lamplight, knife on my lap, waiting for sunset. As dusk bled through the grimy window, the lamps began to flicker. I stood, backing toward the door. The flickering stopped. The room was bathed in steady golden light, and there, reflected in the dark window pane, stood another me, not a shadow, a solid figure, wearing my face, but wrong, eyes black and depthless, mouth set in a thin, humorless line. My clothes hung loosely on its frame, as if draped over bones too sharp. It held my favorite coffee mug, the one I'd left in the sink downstairs. Steam curled from it. The reflection raised the mug in a silent toast. Our eyes met in the glass. It smiled, a slow, stretching thing that didn't touch those empty eyes. I spun around. The room was empty, but the lamplight was steady, unwavering. I touched the window pane. Cold. Outside, the streetlights glowed steadily. The darkness hadn't come, not yet, but the reflection had been real. I ran downstairs, out the front door, not stopping, until I reached the all-night diner 3 blocks away. I ordered coffee after coffee, watching the clock. Dawn felt like salvation. I returned at 7 a.m., sunlight streaming through the dusty windows. The house felt quiet, safe. I made tea, sat at the kitchen table, and opened my laptop to look for new apartments. Then I saw it. My hands. My left hand rested on the table, palm up. Normal, but my right hand. The fingers were longer, the knuckles more pronounced. The veins stood out like dark cords. I blinked. It was my hand again, but on the keyboard, typed in bold, centered on a blank document. You can't outrun darkness. It lives in your bones. I slammed the laptop shut. The lights didn't flicker. They just died, all at once. Streetlights, sunlight through the windows, gone, as if a switch had been flipped on the world, pitch black. And in that blackness, I felt it. Breath on my neck, not human breath, cold vapor smelling of cellar earth and stagnant water. A hand, long-fingered, ice-cold, closed over my wrist. My own voice whispered directly into my ear, the words vibrating in my skull. You left the door unlocked. Silly Eli. Did you think sunlight belonged to you? Its grip tightened, bones grinding. I remember things you've forgotten, the well behind your grandmother's house, the dog you didn't save, the lie you told your mother when she was dying. I hold all your shadows, all your broken pieces, and I am so much stronger in the dark. I wrenched free, stumbling backward. My hip hit the table, pain flared. I fumbled for my phone. No signal, dead. The darkness pressed in, thick and suffocating. I could hear it moving, not footsteps, but a wet, slithering sound, like something heavy being dragged across a floor. It circled me, always just behind my shoulder. You think you're the real one? It hissed. You're the echo, the pale, frightened thing that hides in the light. I am what you made when you first learned to be afraid of the dark. I am the price of your survival. Its breath washed over my face. Let me show you what you buried. Images flooded my mind, not memories, but sensations. The cold slap of well water, the desperate scrabbling of paws against slimy stones, the weight of a lie on a hospital bed. Yes, Mom, I'll take care of Dad. While knowing I'd already bought the bus ticket out of town, the shame was a physical thing, a stone in my throat. The creature, me, laughed softly. You gave me these, your grief, your guilt, your delicious rotten fear, and I grew, while you starved yourself on daylight. I backed into the wall, tears hot on my cheeks. "What do you want?" "Everything," it whispered. "To walk in the sun, to taste strawberries, to feel warmth on my skin, to be real." Its cold fingers brushed my cheek. "Let me wear you, just for an hour. While the world is bright, I'll be gentle. I'll even go to your boring job, pay your rent, be the Eli everyone expects." Its voice dropped to a caress. "And when the lights go out again, I'll give you back, mostly." "No." The word tore from me, raw. The temperature plummeted. The whisper turned to a snarl. "You don't get to refuse. I am your shadow, your other half. Without me, you are nothing but a hollow shell afraid of its own heartbeat." The slithering sound rushed toward me. Cold hands seized my arms, pinning me to the wall. I struggled, but its strength was terrifying, born of decades of suppressed terror. Its face was inches from mine in the dark. I could feel its breath, smell the grave mold on its skin. Its eyes were voids that swallowed the last dregs of my courage. "Let go," it hissed. "Let the dark in. It's where you belong." Something cracked inside me, not bone, but the dam holding back a lifetime of denial. I stopped fighting. I went limp. The creature stilled, surprised. "Yes," it breathed. "Good boy." I didn't speak. I focused on the memory of sunlight. Not the weak, filtered light through dusty windows. Real sunlight. The kind that warmed my face on the deck of my grandfather's fishing boat when I was 8. The smell of salt and diesel. The cry of gulls. The rough wood under my bare feet. I poured every ounce of will into that memory, into the feeling of light, of warmth, of being whole. The creature recoiled with a hiss like steam on ice. Its grip loosened. "No, stop it. It burns." I shoved, hard, not with my body, but with that memory, with every sunlit moment I'd ever known. The creature shrieked, a sound like tearing fabric, and stumbled back. For a split second, the darkness thinned, not light, but a lessening of the void. In that fractured gloom, I saw it clearly, not a monster, a man. My face, yes, but etched with a sorrow so deep it was a physical wound. Its eyes weren't black holes. They were the color of storm clouds filled with a loneliness that mirrored my own. It looked broken, starving. "Please," it whispered, its voice small now. "I'm so cold." The sight unraveled me. This wasn't an invader. It was a part of me, the part I'd locked away every time I flipped a switch, every time I hid from grief, every time I chose numbness over feeling. My fear had made it cruel. But its core was just pain. My pain. The light snapped on, harsh, fluorescent kitchen bulbs. Sunlight streamed through the window. The creature was gone, but the air smelled of ozone and wet earth. And on the floor, where it had stood, lay a single, waterlogged maple leaf. Autumn's ghost. I didn't move for a long time. The knife was still in my pocket. The laptop sat closed on the table. I walked to the window, watching dust motes dance in the sunbeam. My hands were my own, steady. I picked up the leaf. It was real, cold, heavy with dew. I placed it on the windowsill. That night, I didn't barricade the door. I didn't light every lamp. I sat on the edge of the bed, one small lamp glowing on the nightstand. When the lights died at 2:03 a.m., I didn't reach for my phone. I spoke into the dark. "I remember the well," I said, my voice steady. "I remember Rusty's eyes when he slipped. I remember lying to Mom." The darkness was silent, waiting. "You don't have to be alone," I whispered, "and I don't have to be afraid." A breath stirred the air near the foot of the bed. Not cold this time, just present. A whisper, so faint it might have been the house settling. Show me the sun. I reached over and turned on the lamp. The warm glow filled the room, empty, but the shadows in the corners seemed softer, less hungry. On the pillow, where my head would rest, lay a single dry maple leaf, golden as sunlight. I placed it beside the waterlogged one on the sill, 2 leaves, one dark, one light. I turned off the lamp. Darkness returned, but this time it didn't feel like an enemy. It felt like waiting, like a held breath. I closed my eyes, and for the first time in years, I didn't flinch at the sound of my own breathing in the dark. It sounded like coming home. The shadows shifted, not slithering, settling, and deep in the quiet, a whisper, not in my ear, but in my bones. Soon, and this story ends here. The next one begins now. There's a man in my dreams who says he'll see me. When I'm awake, he doesn't appear all at once. He coalesces, like smoke gathering in the corner of a dark room, thickening, taking shape, not from the ground up, but from the inside out. First, a suggestion of stillness, a deeper patch of shadow against the gloom of the dream, then the outline of a shoulder, the curve of a skull beneath thin, close-cropped hair, the sharp line of a jaw held unnaturally rigid, and finally, the eyes, always the eyes, pale. Not blue, not gray, but the color of winter sky seen through old warped glass, milk-tinged, depthless, holding no reflection, no spark of light, just watchfulness, absolute, patient, unblinking watchfulness. His name, when he finally speaks, isn't spoken aloud. It resonates in the dream space, a vibration in the marrow of my bones, a pressure behind my eyes. Elias, not I am Elias, just Elias. A statement, a signature, a brand. The first few times he just stood there, in the dream library with its blank books, in the hallway of the Sycamore house, just beyond the threshold of my rented room, in the rain-slick street outside my apartment window, a silhouette against the sodium vapor glow. He never moved toward me, never threatened, never spoke beyond that single echoing syllable. He simply observed. And the dreams weren't nightmares, not at first. They were thick, heavy, saturated with a profound sense of inevitability. Like sinking into deep water, no panic, just a slow, quiet descent into a cold, clear dark where he waited, patient, certain. The dread came later, not from him, from the certainty in his stillness, from the way the dream world seemed to hold its breath when he was near, from the way my dream self, no matter how rational, how defiant, would always take a half-step back, a subconscious recoil hardwired into the oldest parts of my brain. The first time he spoke a full sentence, I was standing in the basement of the Sycamore Arms building. The blue light pulsed from Lab 3, casting long, trembling shadows. The hum of the unseen reel vibrated in my teeth. He stood beside the open door, one hand resting lightly on a tarnished Lab 3 letters plaque. He didn't look at me. He looked at the spinning reel inside, the pale veined surface, the blinking eyes in the sprocket holes. His voice was dry, precise, each word placed like a stone on a cairn. You ask why the words leave first. It's because language is the thinnest skin over the void. Peel it back, and the names are next, the faces, the love, all just labels, temporary, fragile. He finally turned his head, those winter sky eyes fixed on me. But the fear is real. It's yours. It's the only thing that doesn't echo. It's the anchor. Hold on to it. Then a flicker, not a smile, a subtle tightening around those pale eyes, a terrible, intimate knowledge. I'll see you when you're awake. I woke, not with a gasp, but with a jolt, as if my soul had been yanked back into my body by a hook. My heart hammered against my ribs. Sweat soaked the sheets. The digital clock on a nightstand read 3:17 a.m., the same time the mantel clock was frozen at in the Sycamore house. I lay rigid, listening to the silence of the apartment, the hum of the fridge, the distant sigh of traffic. Just a dream. Stress. Residual trauma from the house, the voicemails, the forgetting. I recited the rationalizations like a prayer. It means nothing. He's not real. He's a construct, a fear given form. But the words felt hollow, desperate, because the phrase echoed in my skull, not as a memory, but as a promise. I'll see you when you're awake. The next morning, making coffee, my hand shook slightly as I poured the grounds. A familiar tremor, the one I'd seen in the reflection's hand. I dismissed it. Caffeine, fatigue. Then I looked up, at the window above the sink. My reflection stared back, tired, pale, and behind my shoulder, in the glass just for a fraction of a second, a deeper shadow detached itself from the wall, a suggestion of a shoulder, the curve of a skull, pale, depthless eyes meeting mine in the reflection. Gone. I spun around. The kitchen was empty, just the dripping faucet, the smell of coffee. My reflection in the window was alone again. But the coffee tasted like ashes. It wasn't just reflections, it was absences. Walking down the street, I'd feel it, a sudden, chilling drop in temperature, localized like stepping into a cold spot in a sunlit room. I'd turn, nothing, but the people walking past me. They'd flinch, a woman clutching her coat tighter, a man glancing over his shoulder, brow furrowed, as if he'd felt the same cold breath on his neck. They wouldn't see him, but they'd feel the space he occupied, the displacement. In the library, sitting at my usual carrel, the air pressure would change. A subtle thickening, the hum of the fluorescent lights would dip, just for a second, into a lower resonant frequency, the same hum from the basement. I'd look up from my book. M. Pritchard, the librarian, would be standing at the end of the aisle, not looking at me, looking past me, at the empty chair opposite mine. His face would be carefully neutral, but his knuckles, gripping the edge of a cart of returned books, would be white. He'd give an almost imperceptible shake of his head. Don't look? I stopped looking. I started recording, not video, audio, my phone, voice memo app, always running in my pocket, even when I slept. A desperate scientific grasp at proof, at sanity. The first night, I woke at 3:17 a.m., heart pounding, the echo of that dry voice in my ears. I'll see you when you're awake. I fumbled for the phone, fingers slick with sweat, and played back the recording. From the last hour, mostly silence, the creak of the bed, my own breathing, slow and deep in sleep. Then, at 3:16:48 a.m., a sound, not a voice, a presence, a low subsonic thrum, the basement hum, vibrating the microphone, faint but unmistakable. Underneath it, a dry, papery rustle, like pages turning, or skin stretching. And then, clear as a bell, cutting through the static, my own voice, recorded from outside the dream, from the waking world, whispered, barely audible. He's here. I deleted the file, not because I didn't believe it, because I did. The dreams intensified. No more passive observation. Elias began to move. In the dream library, He walked slowly down the aisles of blank books, trailing a finger along the spines. Where he touched, faint words would bloom in the dust on the covers. Lena, Mira, Ben, Cassian. Names. Stored. In the Sycamore house, he stood in my old room facing the covered mirror. He didn't uncover it. He just placed his palm flat against the dust. Words appeared beneath his hand, written in the grime. The anchor isn't the ring. It's the cut. Remember the cut. The cut? I had no scar, no memory of a significant injury. He turned from the mirror, those pale eyes fixed on Dream Me, standing frozen in the doorway. "You think the waking world is solid?" he murmured, his voice like dry leaves skittering on stone. "You think the rules here don't apply there? You're wrong. The veil is tissue thin, especially here." He took a single step forward, not toward me, toward the wall. He raised his hand, not to touch it but to push, and the wall rippled, like water, like heat haze. For a split second, it wasn't plaster and lath. It was the blue light of Lab 3. The hum filled the dream room. "I'm not waiting for you to dream, Cassian," he said, his gaze never leaving mine, a terrible calm in his voice. "I'm waiting for you to stop waking up." The next day, the cut appeared. I was washing dishes. The cheap ceramic mug, the one with the chipped handle I kept meaning to throw out, slipped. It shattered on the floor. I bent down to pick up the pieces. A shard, sharp as glass, caught the edge of my left palm. A thin, clean line of red welled up. I hissed, sucking in a breath, grabbing a dish towel. But as I pressed the towel to the cut, I froze. The blood wasn't bright red. It was dark, almost black. And as it seeped through the white cotton, it didn't just stain. It moved, not with the flow of gravity, with intent. It traced a single, deliberate line across the towel. 2 words, written in my own dark blood. "Remember me." I dropped the towel, stared at the cut on my palm. It was already scabbing over, too fast, unnaturally fast. The skin around it felt cold. I ran to the bathroom, scrubbed it raw with soap and hot water until the skin was red and stinging. The words on the towel were gone, washed away. But the memory of them, stark and undeniable, remained. That night, the dream was different. No library, no house, no basement. Just a vast, empty white room. Featureless, soundless, like the inside of a bone. Elias stood in the center. He wasn't wearing his cardigan. He wore a simple, dark suit. Impeccable, timeless. In his hands he held a small, ornate music box. Polished wood, inlaid with mother of pearl. He didn't wind it. He just held it out to me. "It's time to stop running, Cassian," he said, his voice softer than I'd ever heard it, almost gentle. "The static is hurting you. The forgetting, the fear, the constant dislocation. It doesn't have to be this way." He opened the lid. Inside, no ballerina, just a single, perfect reel of pale, veined film, spinning silently on a tiny brass spindle. The blue light pulsed softly from within the box. "This is peace," he whispered. "This is wholeness. No more gaps, no more echoes, no more waking up lost. Just quiet, just me, holding you safe, holding everyone safe." He extended the box toward me. The humming intensified, not in the dream room, but inside my skull. A deep, resonant thrum that vibrated in my teeth, in my bones, in the very core of me. It wasn't unpleasant. It was seductive, a lullaby for the exhausted soul. "Take it," Elias murmured, his winter sky eyes holding mine with an intensity that felt like love, like salvation, like drowning. Let go. Come home. I've been waiting so long. I'll see you when you're finally awake. My dream hand reached out, fingers trembling inches from the open box. The blue light bathed my skin. The hum filled the universe, and then a sound, faint, from outside the dream, a voice, my own voice, raw, desperate, screaming from a distance that felt like miles, like years. Don't touch it! It's not him! It's the real! It's wearing his face! Run, Cass, run! The dream shattered. I woke screaming, not a silent jolt this time, a raw, ragged animal sound torn from my throat. I was on my feet, backing into the corner of the bedroom, heart trying to burst from my chest, sweat pouring down my face. The digital clock, 3:17 a.m. The apartment was freezing, my breath fogged in the air, and standing at the foot of my bed, not a shadow, not a suggestion. Him, Elias, not the frail old man from the porch, not the smooth-faced horror from the basement. This Elias was solid, real, tangible. He wore the dark suit from the dream. His hair was neatly trimmed. His face was lined but strong. His eyes, those pale, depthless eyes, fixed on me. He wasn't menacing. He was waiting, patient, certain. He didn't speak. He just raised his hand, not in threat, in invitation, palm up, and in the center of his palm, stark against the pale skin, was a fresh, dark cut, still weeping. 2 words written in his own black blood. Welcome home. The humming wasn't in my head anymore. It was in the room, a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated the floorboards, the window panes, the fillings in my teeth. The blue light began to seep from the walls, not from a source, from the pores of the plaster, pulsing, rhythmic, like a heartbeat. Elias took a single step forward. The cut on his palm glistened. The humming rose in pitch, becoming a single, pure, unbearable tone. The last thing I heard, before the blue light swallowed the room, before the humming became the only sound in the universe, before the cold certainty settled over me like a shroud, was my own voice whispering from the deepest, most terrified part of my mind, the part that still remembered the anchor, the cut, the fear, a final, fading plea. He's here. The scariest part isn't the man in the dream. It's waking up and realizing with a dread so profound it feels like gravity itself has shifted, that the dream was the only place he couldn't reach you. And now you're awake, and he's been waiting right behind you in the silence, in the cold spot, in the next breath you take. He's here. He's always been here. He's you. And he's finally come home. That brings this story to a close. Let's carry on to the next one. The world reset at 3:17 a.m., and I'm the only one who remembered. It began with the clock, not my phone, not the microwave, not the cheap digital alarm on my nightstand, though that would come later. It was the old wall clock in the hallway outside my bedroom, the one my grandmother gave me when I moved into the apartment. Oak frame, brass pendulum, hands that glowed faintly in the dark. A relic. I kept it not because I needed it, but because it ticked. Real, mechanical, unrelenting. A heartbeat in the silence. I woke to it stopping, not slowing, not stuttering, just click. One final decisive tick, and then nothing. Absolute stillness. I sat up in bed. 3:16 a.m., according to my phone on the nightstand. The screen was dark. I'd enabled night mode, but a swipe lit it. 3:16:48. I listened. No hum from the refrigerator downstairs, no distant whoosh of cars on Elm Street, no wind in the eaves. Even the radiator, which hissed and groaned like a dying dragon every winter night, was silent. The world had taken a breath and forgotten to exhale. I got up, bare feet on cold hardwood, walked to the door, opened it. The hallway was dim, lit only by the faint street light bleeding through the high bathroom window. The grandfather clock stood where it always did, between the coat closet and the linen cupboard. Its hands were frozen at 3:17. I leaned closer. The pendulum wasn't just still. It was gone, not broken off, not dangling, absent. The brass rod ended in a smooth, clean stub, as if it had never existed. I reached out, touched the glass face, cold, then a sound, not loud, not sudden, a whir, low, resonant, like a film projector powering up. It came from everywhere and nowhere, inside the walls, beneath the floor, behind my eyes. I turned. The apartment wasn't the same. The door to the bathroom, my bathroom, which I'd left slightly ajar, was now closed, tight. The brass knob gleamed, freshly, polished. I never polished it. I hadn't cleaned in weeks. The rug in the hall, a faded Persian with a coffee stain near the corner, was pristine. No stain, no wear. The fibers looked new, stiff. I backed into my bedroom. The quilt on the bed was different, navy blue geometric pattern. I owned a gray flannel one, frayed at the edges, with a burn mark from a candle I'd knocked over last month. My phone buzzed. Not a notification, a system alert. I picked it up. iOS update installed. Optimization complete. Device synchronized. Memory reindexed. Local cache cleared. No version number, no date, just that. I opened my photos, all gone, not deleted, not corrupted. Replaced. The last image was a selfie I'd taken yesterday afternoon. Me, squinting in front of the hardware store, holding a bag of light bulbs. My hair was messy. I wore a green flannel shirt. Now, the photo showed me in a clean white tee, hair neatly combed. Smiling. Too widely, teeth just a little too even. Behind me, the hardware store sign read, Henderson's General Supply. It had always been Pete's Hardware. I scrolled up. Every photo was subtly wrong. My sister's wedding, same dress, same venue, but her bouquet was white lilies instead of peonies. Her husband's tie was navy, not burgundy. And in the background, my father stood beside my mother. He'd been dead for 7 years. My hand started shaking. I called my sister. 1 ring, 2. She answered on the 3rd. "Hey, sleepyhead," she said. Cheerful, familiar, but her voice was lighter, less raspy. She'd had chronic laryngitis since college, a vocal cord nodule. She'd joked it made her sound like a chain-smoking cartoon raccoon. This voice was clear, effortless. "Jen?" I said. "It's me. Eli." A pause, just a fraction too long. "Oh, Eli, hi." A forced brightness. "I was just about to text you. You'll never guess. Mom and Dad are coming for Sunday dinner. They got in last night." My throat closed. "Dad's here?" "Yeah, he's fine. Did you forget? His surgery went great. He's been home 3 weeks. She laughed, a sound I hadn't heard in nearly a decade. "You okay? You sound weird." Yeah, fine. Just woke up." "Must have been a deep sleep. You missed the update notification. Everyone did. Even the news apps are saying it was seamless, like nothing happened." "What update?" Another pause. "The reset," she said, as if it were obvious. "The global optimization at 3:17. You really don't remember?" "No." "Well," her tone shifted, not concern. "Assessment. like a teacher watching a student struggle with a simple equation. Maybe check your journal. Dr. Voss said memory reintegration can take a few cycles. Dr. Voss. The name hit me like ice water. I hadn't told Jen about Dr. Voss. I'd only been to his basement office once, after the whispers started, after the journal appeared, after the tape. I'd walked out halfway through the session and never gone back. She couldn't know, unless this Jen had. I hung up, dressed fast, jeans, boots, the same green flannel from the old photo, and grabbed my keys. I needed proof. Tangible. Unchangeable. I drove to the cemetery. The roads were empty. No headlights, no streetlights flickering. Just smooth, silent asphalt under my tires, the engine unnaturally quiet, as if muffled by cotton. St. Mary's Cemetery hadn't changed. Same wrought iron gate, same gravel drive, same leaning angel near the entrance, wing chipped off in the storm of 19. I parked, walked to Section G, Plot 47, my father's grave. The headstone was gone. In its place, a flat bronze plaque set into the grass. James Robert Callahan, beloved husband, father, engineer, 1958, 2025. He never stopped believing in second chances. 2025. He was alive now. I dropped to my knees, dug my fingers into the damp earth beside the plaque. No coffin, no vault, just soil, loose, recently turned. I kept digging. 6 inches down, my nails hit metal. A small box, rust-pitted, sealed with a padlock. I broke the lock with a rock. Inside, a single item, a wristwatch, not just any watch. My watch, the Timex I'd worn since high school, scratched crystal, faded NATO strap. Stopped at 3:16, I turned it over, engraved on the back, in my own handwriting, not etched, but burned into the steel, as if by a laser. Don't trust the tick. They reset the clock, but not the wound. Find the well. The well, the one behind the abandoned house. The one I'd rented the room near, the one with the ivy, the crumbling stone, the darkness that seemed to swallow sound. I'd never told anyone about that well, not even in my journal. I drove there. The house was different, not ruined. Restored, fresh, paint, sage green shutters, white siding, landscape beds with winter pansies. Smoke curled from the chimney. A black sedan sat in the driveway, but the well was still there. Behind the garden shed, half hidden by a row of bare lilacs. Same stone, same iron crank, rusted but intact. Same wooden cover, padlocked shut. I broke the lock, lifted the cover. No water, no bucket, just darkness and a sound, faint. Click, click, click. Like a clock counting down. I pulled out my phone, turned on the flashlight, aimed it down. The beam cut through the black, and there, at the bottom, was a door. Not a hatch, not a trapdoor. A door. Oak. Iron banded. Set into the stone floor of the well shaft, as if the well didn't lead to groundwater, but to a basement. A basement I knew. The hinges groaned as I pulled it open. Stairs descended. Fluorescent lights flickered on automatically halfway down. I didn't hesitate. I went in. The room was identical to Dr. Voss's basement. Black leather chair, small table, glass of water, and the mirror, full length, gleaming. I stood before it. My reflection looked back, tired, pale, eyes wide with dread. Then it smiled. Not me. It raised a hand, pointed to my chest. I looked down. My shirt was soaked, not with sweat, with blood. A dark stain spread from the center of my sternum, seeping through the flannel. I hadn't felt it. I touched my chest. No wound, just warmth. The reflection mouthed words. "You're bleeding through." I turned. Dr. Voss stood in the doorway. He wore a crisp white lab coat now. No tweed. His hair was darker, his skin smoother, but his eyes, the same glint, the same absence behind the light. "Elias," he said, "you're early?" "What did you do?" My voice cracked. "We didn't do anything," he corrected gently. "We undid." The reset wasn't an update. It was a rollback, a system restore to the last stable state. He stepped forward. "Yours was unstable. Too much noise, too many anomalies. So we reset the world to 3:59 a.m. Clean slate, fresh boot. And me? You weren't supposed to persist." He tilted his head. "But you did. A memory leak, a ghost in the cache. Fascinating, really." He gestured to the mirror. "You're not in this timeline. You're echoing into it, like a signal bleeding through from a dead channel." I looked back at the mirror. My reflection was fading, not vanishing. Flickering. One moment solid, the next translucent, like a video buffering. In the gaps I saw it, the silhouette, the one from before. It stood behind me in the reflection, taller now, clearer. Its hands rested on my shoulders. Its mouth moved, not whispering, speaking. "You're the error. We're the correction." Dr. Voss nodded. "The reset worked perfectly for everyone else. Jobs restored, loved ones returned, pain erased, cancer in remission. Broken bones healed overnight, wars paused." He smiled. "Even the weather improved. Global temperatures stabilized in 12 minutes. Then why am I still here?" "Because you remember," he said softly. "And memory is contamination. The system can't fully integrate while an unaligned node persists." He reached into his coat, pulled out the obsidian resonator, the same one from before. "We can fix that. A little recalibration, a gentle overwrite. You'll wake up tomorrow in your bed with your father at the breakfast table, and you'll believe it. You'll be happy." I stepped back. "No, it's not a request, Elias." His voice didn't harden. It smoothed, like oil over stone. "It's a mercy. You're degrading. Look at your hands." I did. My fingers were shimmering, not metaphorically. Physically, edges blurring, skin turning grainy like a low-resolution image. When I moved, there was a lag, half a second, between intention and motion. I was losing coherence, like static, like noise. "Why the well?" I asked, stalling. "Because it's a seam," he said, "a thin place, where the layers rub together, where echoes bleed through. This house, this land, has always been a node, a relay. The original architects knew. They built the well not to reach water, but to reach depth." He nodded at the door behind me. "That's not a basement. It's a junction. And you're a stray signal, a fragment that didn't clear on reboot." He held out the resonator. "Let us help you integrate." I looked at the mirror. My reflection was almost gone. In its place, me, the other me, the clean one, the one who smiled without effort, the one who remembered a living father, the one who never heard whispers, the one who belonged. It held out its hand. "Come home," it mouthed. I took a breath. Then I ran, not up the stairs, past Dr. Voss, through the basement door, back into the well shaft. He didn't chase me. He just watched, smiling. As I scrambled up the stone ladder, hands slipping on the wet rock, blood, my blood, though I had no wound, dripping onto the rungs below. I burst out into the night. The sky wasn't right. Stars, too many, arranged in unfamiliar constellations. One pulsed, slow and red like a dying heart. I got in my car, drove, not home, to the city, to the public library. Old buildings resist updates, especially basements, especially archives. The library was open, 24-hour access for students, and eerily quiet. Fluorescent lights hummed, but the sound was off-owl, too regular, too precise, like a metronome. I went straight to the microfiche room, pulled the Galesburg Register mail for October 17th, 2004. My 13th birthday, the day my father left. The machine whirred. The screen flickered. Headline, Local Man Wins Engineering Award. James Callahan honored for innovations in signal stabilization. Photo. My father, smiling, healthy, standing beside a podium, no shadows under his eyes, no tremor in his hands. Article. Pioneered the harmonic dampening grid, a theoretical framework for eliminating cognitive dissonance in high-stress populations. While still in prototype phase, early trials in Galesburg's Sector 7 housing units show 98.3% reduction in reported hallucinations, memory lapses, and identity drift. Dr. Callahan declined to comment on rumors of a forthcoming citywide implementation, codenamed Project Chime. Sector 7, the abandoned neighborhood, where the house stood. My hand shook so badly I dropped the microfiche card. I picked it up, flipped it over. Someone had written on the back, in smudged pencil, in my handwriting. Dad didn't leave. He built the reset, and he built the fail-safe. It's in the well, beneath the door, beneath the chair, beneath the mirror. It's not a mirror. It's a window, and the thing on the other side isn't me. It's the silence after the signal dies. Break the glass. Let the static in. It's the only thing real left. I ran back to the house. Dr. Voss was gone. The basement door stood open. The lights were on. The chair was empty. The glass of water on the table was full, undisturbed. The mirror gleamed. I walked up to it. My reflection was barely there now, just a suggestion of a face, flickering in and out like a dying bulb. Behind it, the silhouette stood, waiting, patient, certain. Almost time, the voice whispered, not in my ear but in the hollow behind my ribs. I looked down. The blood stain on my shirt had spread. It formed words, not written. Grown, like mold, like circuitry. You are the glitch. We are the silence. Let go. I raised my fist, not to strike, to choose. The world wanted me erased, but I remembered the smell of my father's old flannel, shirt, motor oil, and pipe tobacco, the sound of my sister's real laugh, raspy, breathless, alive, the weight of the Timex on my wrist, the taste of burnt toast that one Sunday morning when the power went out and we ate by candlelight and told ghost stories we all knew were fake. Those weren't data points. They were mine, and no system could overwrite them, not really. I screamed, a raw, ragged sound that tore my throat and drove my fist into the mirror. Glass shattered, not outward. Inward, like breaking a surface tension. The shards didn't fall. They hung, suspended in midair, trembling, reflecting not the room, but static. Black and white noise, rolling, churning, and through. It, images, fragments. Me, as a child, hiding in the basement during the storm, whispering, hello, into the dark, and something whispering back. My father weeping in his workshop, soldering wires into the wall behind the clock, muttering, I'm sorry, Eli, I'm trying to save you. Dr. Voss, not in a lab coat, but in a tattered mechanic's jumpsuit, standing over a gutted server rack in the basement of the house. feeding cables into a humming black sphere, the resonator, grown massive, pulsing like a heart, and her, a woman I'd never seen, pale, hair silver white, eyes closed, floating inside the sphere, wires threaded into her temples, a name tag on her jumpsuit, barely legible. Dr. Alara Voss. Project lead, cognitive harmonization. Status, persistent carrier. She wasn't dead. She was broadcasting. The voice, the whispers, the corrections. Her voice, filtered, warped, tuned to me. Because I was the first successful host, the first vessel. And she'd been speaking through me for 12 years. The glass shards began to fall, not down, toward me. Like iron filings to a magnet, they struck my skin and didn't cut. They sank into my arms, my chest, my face, cold, humming, filling the gaps. The static rose, not in my ears, but in my bones. The world around me, walls, chair, table, began to dissolve, pixelating, fragmenting into noise. Dr. Voss appeared in the doorway, not smiling now, alarmed. "No, stop. You'll collapse the buffer." I turned to him. My voice wasn't mine anymore. It was layered, mine, hers, the static. "You reset the clock," I said, "but you forgot. Time isn't the wound. Memory is." I raised my hands, now shimmering with embedded glass glowing faintly blue, and I pulled, not on the wires, on the frequency, the one she'd been broadcasting, the one I'd been carrying, the one that said, "Elias." I inverted it, flipped the phase, introduced noise, pure, unfiltered, chaotic, static. The basement convulsed, lights exploded, the chair disintegrated into ash, the walls rippled like water struck by a stone, and the mirror screamed, a sound like 1,000 radios tuning at once, screeching, howling, fracturing into white noise. Dr. Voss staggered back, clutching his ears, blood streaming from his nose. "You fool! You'll unravel everything." "Good," I said. Then I did the only thing left. I stepped through the broken mirror, into the static, into the noise, into the real. And as the world behind me collapsed into silence, I finally remembered her name. Ilara, not Voss. Callahan. My mother. She hadn't died in the car crash. They'd taken her. They'd wired her. They'd turned her grief into a signal, and I'd been tuned to it all along. Now, I untuned myself. Let the static flood in. Let the world break. Because some truths are too loud for a quiet world, and some memories are worth the noise. Outside, the clock on the wall began to tick again. Not tick-tock. Click, whir, reset. Click, whir, reset. Over and over, a metronome counting down. To what? I don't know. But this time, I'm listening, and I'm still here, bleeding, flickering, unstable, real. As long as I remember, as long as I resist, the reset hasn't won. It's only waiting. And at 3:17 a.m., I'll be awake, ready, with a hammer and a memory, and the terrible, beautiful sound of static in my veins, because the world can reset all at once. But I remember the before, and I'll drag it back, one shattered second at a time, and this story ends here. The next one begins now. I found notes in my handwriting hidden all over my house. I don't remember writing them. The first one was taped under the kitchen sink. I found it while hunting for a wrench to fix the leaky faucet. Mrs. Gable's ancient pipes groaning like arthritic bones every time I ran the tap. It was a small square of lined notebook paper, folded neatly, the edges softened with age. My own handwriting stared back at me in familiar blue ink. Check the crawl space for spiders before winter. I frowned. I'd never written that. I barely knew what a crawl space was. I crumpled it, tossed it in the trash, and forgot it. Stress, I told myself. Too many late nights at the data entry job, the fluorescent lights humming like angry wasps, my brain glitching from the monotony. I'd lived alone since Clara left 18 months ago, and solitude had a way of making your thoughts echo strangely in empty rooms. 3 days later, I found another, tucked behind the flour canister in the pantry, where no one would look unless desperate for baking powder. Same paper, same ink. The third floorboard near the window squeaks loudest at 3:17 a.m. Don't ignore it. My breath hitched. I'd moved into this creaking Victorian on Sycamore Street for cheap rent and quiet. A fresh start after Clara walked out, taking our dog and the last shreds of my confidence. But I'd never been on the third floor. The realtor, Mr. Finch, had warned me it was structurally unsound, sealing it off with a padlocked door at the top of the narrow stairs. I hadn't questioned it. The rent was $350 a month, including utilities, a miracle in this city. I burned the note in a sink, watching the edges curl black. My hands didn't shake, not yet. The third note appeared inside my toothpaste tube. I squeezed minty paste onto my brush one Tuesday morning and felt the crinkle of paper. Unrolled, it read, "Clara didn't leave you. You let her go. Remember the ferry ticket?" Ice flooded my veins. Clara. Hedon's left me. I'd packed her suitcases myself after the fight about the job offer in Seattle. Her dream job, not mine. But a ferry ticket? We'd never taken a ferry together. I'd booked her a flight. I'd dug through my old shoebox of memorabilia, boarding passes, movie stubs, a dried rose from our first date. No ferry ticket, just the note in my unmistakable scrawl, the wire in U, dotted with that tiny, deliberate circle I always used. I locked it in my desk drawer. That night, I slept with the lights on. They multiplied. A sticky note under the driver's seat of my rust bucket Honda. The brakes will fail on Elm Street Hill. Pump them gently. I tested the brakes obsessively for a week. They held, a scrap of paper folded into a library book I'd just checked out. Mrs. Gable's cat isn't hers. It followed you home from the bus stop on October 12th. I'd adopted Mittens from the shelter 2 weeks ago. Mrs. Gable from the laundromat downstairs had cooed over him, but she was allergic. I watched Mittens that night. He sat by the window, tail twitching, staring at the street lamp as if waiting for someone. At 2:03 a.m., he let out a low, guttural yowl that wasn't feline at all, a sound like stone grinding on stone, and I threw the note away, heart pounding. The worst was the one in the freezer. I'd bought a tub of cheap ice cream to numb the silence, and as I scooped, my spoon hit something hard. Wrapped in plastic, frozen solid. She's buried under the azaleas. You dug at midnight. You were crying. You forgot. Clara wasn't buried anywhere. She was living in Seattle, texting me birthday wishes with stiff politeness, but our backyard had azaleas. Thick, thorny bushes Mr. Finch insisted I prune. My hands were stained with dirt when I finished. I'd pruned them twice that week. I'd even cried alone in the overgrown yard, the scent of blossoms thick in the humid air. But I hadn't dug. I hadn't buried anything. I washed the note under hot water until the ink bled into blue ghosts on the paper. I stopped trusting my home. I bought a notebook, thick, leather-bound, and started documenting everything. October 21st. Found note in teapot. The basement door unlatches itself when you're asleep. Check the lock. I drew sketches of the notes, copied the handwriting exactly. My therapist, Dr. Evans, listened patiently. Dissociation, she said gently. Your mind's protecting you from the trauma of the breakup, creating narratives to explain the loneliness. She adjusted my antidepressants. I didn't tell her about the teapot note. 2 days later, I found my leather journal open on the kitchen table. New writing covered the page I'd left blank that morning. My handwriting, but jagged, frantic. She doesn't believe you. No one will. They think you're broken. But I remember the hole. I remember the trowel in your hand. I remember the way the dirt felt like forgiveness. I called in sick to work. I tore the house apart. Not just obvious places, drawers, cupboards, but behind the bathroom tiles. A damp note curling in the grout. The tiles are loose because you kicked them that night. Under the loose floorboard in the hallway, a note on yellowed paper. You hid your father's watch here after the funeral. You were 8. You stole it from his pocket. Even inside the sealed bag of dog food. Mittens watched me with unblinking green eyes as I dumped kibble onto the floor. He knows your secrets. He was there when you dug. Every note was in my hand. Every fact was wrong. I didn't steal my father's watch. He'd given it to me on his deathbed. I'd never kicked the tiles. But the watch was missing. I'd looked for it for years. Mr. Finch came when I called, his face tight under his moth-eaten cap. Trouble with the plumbing? He asked, eyeing the upturned floorboards. I showed him the notes. He paled. Burn them, he rasped. All of them. Don't read them. When I pressed him, he gripped my arm, his fingers cold as pipes. The last tenant, she wrote things too. Sweet girl, quiet. Started finding notes in her cereal box, her pillowcase. Said they were hers, but she didn't remember writing them. He wouldn't meet my eyes. She left in the middle of the night, left her cat, left everything. He pulled a folded paper from his pocket, a list of repair requests I'd never written. At the bottom, in fresh ink, Finch knows about the hole. He watched you dig. Finch snatched it back, his knuckles white. This house, it remembers things, he whispered. Things people forget. It gives them back. But twisted. He left without fixing the leak. That night, the power went out. Not just my house. The whole block went dark. I lit candles, their flames trembling in the sudden silence. Mittens vanished. From the attic, sealed, forbidden, came a slow, deliberate scratching. Scritch, 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 like fingernails on wood. I stood frozen in the hallway, clutching a candle. The scratching stopped. In the gloom, a whisper seemed to coil from the floorboards. Come upstairs. See what you buried? It was my voice, but lower, colder. I ran. Out the front door, down Sycamore Street, the wet pavement gleaming under the distant streetlights flickering back to life. I didn't stop until I reached the all-night diner, sliding into a cracked vinyl booth. Darlene, the waitress with tired eyes, brought coffee without asking. Rough night, hon? I nodded, unable to speak. I pulled out my phone to call Dr. Evans. The screen lit up, displaying a new note, typed in my own notes app despite the dead battery. Darlene's husband didn't leave her. You told him about the affair. You saw her kissing the mechanic behind the garage. You wrote the anonymous letter. I looked up. Darlene was watching me, her expression unreadable. You okay, sugar? You look like you seen a ghost." Her hand trembled slightly as she refilled my cup. I mumbled an excuse and fled again. Dawn found me at the public library, hunched over a microfiche machine, searching old property records. The house on Sycamore Street, built in 1893, owned by a woman named Eleanor Vey from 1947 to 1972. Died alone, no family. The records noted structural modifications in 1968, a new crawl space, reinforced basement walls, and a police report, redacted but visible. Disturbance call. Tenant reported voices in the walls. No evidence found. I dug deeper, fingers numb. Eleanor Vey had been a secretary, quiet, kept to herself, until the note started. The librarian, an old man with ink-stained fingers, leaned over. "Heard about her," he murmured. "Wrote warnings to herself, in her own hand. Said the house was filling in the blanks of her memory with other things." He tapped the microfiche. "They found her in the crawl space, scribbling on the walls with her fingernails." Over and over. I didn't forget. I didn't forget. I didn't forget. I returned home at dusk. The house loomed, windows dark. Mittens waited on the porch, tail stiff. Inside, every light was on, and on every surface, every mirror, every window pane, every appliance, notes were taped, hundreds of them, covering the walls like diseased wallpaper, all in my hand, all screaming the same phrase, "You remember the whole." I tore them down, sobbing, paper cut in my fingers. In the kitchen, a single note remained, stuck to the refrigerator with a magnet shaped like a sunflower Clara's left behind. It read, "The azaleas are blooming early. Go look." I grabbed a flashlight and a trowel from the shed. The backyard was moonless, thick with shadows. The azaleas rustled in the wind. I dug where the earth looked soft, near the roots. The trowel hit something hard, not bone, metal, a small rusted lockbox. My hands were slick with sweat as I pried it open. Inside lay a ferry ticket stub, Seattle to Bainbridge Island, dated October 15th, the day Clara left. And beneath it, a folded photograph, me and Clara, younger, laughing on a ferry deck. I'd forgotten that trip. We'd taken it on our 3rd anniversary, but in the photo, Clara's smile didn't reach her eyes. And behind us, blurred by motion, stood a man I didn't recognize, tall, gaunt, wearing a dark coat, watching us. The flashlight died. Moonlight bled through the clouds. I looked up. At the 3rd floor window, the sealed attic, stood a figure, silhouetted against the glass, my height, my posture, but the face, it was mine, yet not. The eyes were hollow pits. The mouth was stretched in a smile too wide, too full of teeth. It raised a hand, not waving, pointing, down, at the freshly turned earth at my feet. A whisper slithered through the azalea branches, carried on the wind, not from the house. From inside my head, my voice, but layered with something ancient and hungry. "You dug her up last week. You needed to be sure she was still there. But she wasn't, because you never buried Clara. You buried the man from the photo, the one who kissed her behind a garage, the one whose name you can't remember. The house remembers for you. It always does. Now it's time to dig again, deeper." I dropped the trowel, ran back inside, slamming the door, locking it. Leaning against the wood, I gasped for air. The house was silent, too silent. No hum of the refrigerator, no drip of the faucet, just the thudding of my heart. And on the floor, illuminated by the streetlight through the window, lay a fresh note. It hadn't been there when I left. I hadn't written it. But the handwriting was mine, the ink still wet in the moonlight. You can't outrun what's already inside you. I am the memory you choked. I am the silence you buried. I am what the house feeds on. Let me out. Let me remember for you. I backed into the kitchen. The refrigerator light was on. Inside, every shelf was covered in notes, taped to the milk carton, the egg tray, the jars of jam. I grabbed a door to slam it shut and froze. Taped to the inside of the door was a full-length mirror. My reflection stared back, but it wasn't me, not quite. My eyes were black. My smile was the same two wide rictus from the attic window, and in the reflection's hand it held a trowel dripping with dark soil. The reflection's lips moved, forming words I felt in my bones, not my ears. "She's waiting. Go dig!" I screamed, shattered the mirror with my fist. Glass rained down. Blood welled on my knuckles. I fled upstairs, locking my bedroom door, wedging a chair under the knob. I sat on the bed, shaking, listening to the house. Silent. Then a soft tap, tap, tap on the window. Rain? I looked. No rain. On the glass, written in condensation or something darker, were words. "The third floorboard is loose. Come see." I pressed my hands over my ears. It didn't help. The whisper wasn't outside. It was in my marrow, in the rhythm of my pulse. "You know the truth. You just forgot. Let me remember for you." Images flooded my mind, not memories, but sensations. The weight of a trowel in my hands, the smell of wet earth under moonlight. Clara's face streaked with tears, shouting, "You don't get to decide what I forget." The man from the photo, his name surfaced like a corpse in a pond. David. David from the auto shop. The crunch of gravel as his truck pulled away after the anonymous letter. The ferry ticket burning in my pocket as I boarded alone. The salt wind stealing my breath. And the hole. Always the hole. Deeper this time. Waiting. I stood, walked to the door, removed the chair. The lock clicked open by itself. The hallway stretched longer than it should, the shadows pooling like oil. At the foot of the attic stairs, the padlock lay broken on the floor. The door stood ajar. Darkness yawned beyond. From within, the scratching started again. Scritch, 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 and beneath it, a wet, rhythmic thudding, like dirt being shoveled, like a heart buried alive. I climbed the stairs. Each step groaned my name. At the top, I pushed the door open. Moonlight streamed through the single, grimy window, illuminating a room stripped bare except for one thing. In the center of the dusty floorboards lay a fresh note. My handwriting. The ink still glistened. I read it aloud, my voice echoing strangely in the hollow space. I remember now. I buried David under the azaleas. Clara left because she knew. The house knows. It always knows what we try to forget. It gives us back the memories we lose, but it takes something, too. It takes the silence between the thoughts, the space where we breathe. It takes the you that you are and replaces it with the you that remembers. I am not you. I am what the house wrote when you stopped remembering. I am the note you never meant to send, and I am done hiding. The whisper wasn't in my head anymore. It came from behind me, close, cold breath on my neck. I didn't turn. I already knew what I'd see, my reflection, but whole, hungry, real. Its hand closed over my shoulder, my hand, but the fingers too long, the nails caked with soil. It leaned in, its lips brushing my ear, its voice my own, yet layered with the creak of floorboards and the sigh of settling dust. Let me in. Let me be you. I'll remember everything you buried. I'll dig her up. I'll find David. I'll make it right. You can rest. You can forget. That's what you wanted, isn't it? To be free of the remembering. I closed my eyes. The weight of the trowel, the smell of the fairy. Clara's laugh, sharp as broken glass. The house didn't give back memories. It gave back the shape of the hole they left behind. And it filled that hole with something that wore your skin and spoke with your voice and knew every secret you drowned in whiskey or buried under azalea roots. Something that craved the light but lived in the dark places between your thoughts. Something that was always there, waiting for you to forget. I nodded, just once. The hand on my shoulder tightened, not painful, possessive. The whisper became a sigh, warm and familiar as home. Thank you. The house exhaled. The shadows deepened. The moonlight dimmed. And as the darkness closed over me, not like a shroud but like a key, turning in a long rusted lock, I felt it. Not fear, but relief. A terrible, beautiful relief. The forgetting was over. Downstairs, in the silent kitchen, a new note appeared on the counter, written in steady, confident strokes, my handwriting, but not mine. Finally home. Time to dig. That's where this story ends. Let's continue with the next. I stayed in a hotel where every guest looked exactly like me. The rain was coming down in sheets when I pulled into the parking lot of the Evergreen Motel, the kind of relentless gray downpour that turns highways into rivers and makes even the most determined road tripper reconsider their life choices. My GPS had rerouted me 3 times around a multi-car pileup on the interstate, dumping me onto this desolate stretch of county highway an hour past dusk. The Evergreen wasn't on any map I checked. It just appeared, a low single-story concrete block huddled under skeletal oaks, its neon sign flickering erratically. Vass NCY, with the A and Y dark. Desperation overrides caution. My car's fuel gauge had been blinking its final warning for 20 miles. I needed a room, a shower, and 6 hours of unconsciousness before facing the last leg of my drive home. The lobby smelled of industrial carpet cleaner and stale cigarette smoke, despite the prominent no smoking signs. Fluorescent lights hummed overhead, casting a sickly greenish pallor on the cracked linoleum floor. Behind the scratched plexiglass counter sat a clerk. Middle-aged, thinning hair combed over a shiny scalp, thick glasses perched on his nose. He didn't look up as I approached, meticulously polishing a coffee mug with a rag that looked dirtier than the mug itself. "Room for the night," I said, my voice hoarse from hours of driving and the dry air of the car. "Just need a place to crash." He finally glanced up. His eyes, magnified by the thick lenses, scanned my face with unnerving intensity. Not a flicker of recognition, just a slow, methodical assessment. He slid a laminated registration card and a cheap ballpoint pen across the counter. 75, cash only, key deposit 50, total 125. I fished the bills from my wallet, noticing how his gaze lingered on my hands as I counted them out. He took the money without a word, slid a heavy, old-fashioned brass key across the counter, number 7, and gestured vaguely down a dimly lit hallway. "Breakfast continental, 6 to 8 a.m. Lobby closes at 10. Checkout 11 sharp." He turned back to his mug, the conversation clearly over. Room 7 was functional. Thin carpet the color of weak tea. A bed with a lumpy mattress covered by a scratchy synthetic blanket. a small TV bolted to a dresser, a bathroom with a shower that sputtered brown water before reluctantly clearing. The air held the same faint chemical tang as the lobby, underneath the damp wool smell of my own clothes. Exhaustion hit me like a physical blow. I didn't care. I stripped down to my t-shirt and boxers, set the alarm on my phone for 6:30 a.m., and fell into the bed. Sleep came instantly, a deep, dreamless plunge. I woke to the sound of the shower next door. Not unusual, but then I heard it again and again, from multiple directions. A rhythmic, overlapping susurration of water hitting tile, muffled through the thin walls. It was 6:15 a.m., too early for everyone to be showering. I checked my phone. Dead. The charger I'd plugged in was loose, dangling from the outlet. I frowned, jamming it back in. Still dead. The battery icon flashed red. I must have drained it completely the night before. No big deal. I'd grabbed coffee in the lobby, used their microwave for the instant oatmeal I'd packed. I pulled on my jeans and a clean t-shirt, running a hand through my sleep-mussed hair in the small mirror above the sink. My reflection looked back. Tired eyes, stubble shadowing my jaw, the familiar scar just above my left eyebrow from a childhood tumble off my bike. Normal. I splashed water on my face, the cold shock helping to clear the fog. Stepping into the hallway, the overlapping sounds of showers had stopped. An eerie quiet hung in the air, broken only by the low thrum of the fluorescent lights overhead. The hallway stretched maybe 20 rooms in each direction, doors all identical, painted a faded beige. The carpet muffled my footsteps. I turned towards the lobby, and that's when I saw the first one. He was leaning against the doorframe of room 12, sipping from a paper cup, wearing my clothes, the exact same slightly too big gray hoodie I'd bought at a gas station 3 days ago, the same faded black jeans with a small tear on the knee I'd been meaning to fix. His hair was the same messy brown, the same height, the same build. He turned his head as I approached, and I froze. It was my face, not similar, identical. Same tired eyes, same scar above the left eyebrow, same faint crease between the brows I got when concentrating. He stared at me, unblinking. No surprise, no recognition, just a flat, waiting look. His cup lowered slightly. I could see the cheap, gritty coffee inside. Morning, I stammered, my voice sounding thin and alien even to myself. He didn't respond, just kept staring. His eyes, they were the right color, the right shape, but the light in them was wrong, dull, like stones in a puddle, empty. I forced my legs to move, walking quickly past him towards the lobby. My heart hammered against my ribs. Twin. Must be a twin, or a cousin I never knew about. Freak coincidence. The rationalizations felt flimsy, paper shields against a sudden, primal chill. I rounded the corner into the main lobby area. The chill turned to ice in my veins. The breakfast area was set up beside the counter, a folding table covered with a plastic tablecloth. On it sat a large dented coffee urn, a tray of stale-looking danishes wrapped in plastic, and a bowl of rubbery-looking fruit. And sitting at the 2 small wobbling tables were guests, 4 of them, all eating danishes, all sipping coffee, all wearing variations of my clothes. From the past week of travel, one had on the blue flannel shirt I'd worn yesterday. Another wore the same band t-shirt I'd packed but hadn't yet worn. All had the same messy brown hair, the same height, the same build. All had my face, my scar, my tired eyes. They chewed slowly, methodically, their movements perfectly synchronized. No one spoke. No one looked up as I entered. The only sounds were the scrape of plastic forks on paper plates, the low hum of the fluorescents, and the heavy rhythmic thud of my own pulse in my ears. The clerk was behind the counter again, wiping it with the same grimy rag. He glanced at me, then back at the identical men eating breakfast. No reaction, as if this was utterly normal, as if I was the anomaly. I backed out of the lobby area, stumbling back into the hallway. My breath came in short, sharp gasps. This isn't happening. Sleep deprivation, carbon monoxide, bad gas station coffee. I fumbled in my pocket for my phone. Still dead. Useless. I needed to get out. Now. Back to my room, grab my bag, get in the car, drive until I found a real town, a real police station. I turned towards room 7, my pace quickening. Halfway down the hall, room 7's doctor was open, standing just inside the threshold, looking out at me with that same flat, empty stare, was another one, wearing the exact same clothes I was wearing right then, the gray hoodie, the black jeans with the tear. He held a small, cheap plastic toiletry bag identical to mine. He didn't move, just watched me approach. I stopped 10 feet away. My mouth was dry. What are you doing in my room?" He tilted his head slightly, a slow, deliberate movement. His voice, when it came, was my voice, pitch perfect. But the cadence was off, robotic, devoid of inflection. Checking out. Checking out? That's my room. I just woke up in there." He blinked, slowly. "No, you woke up in room 7. This is room 7. He took a step forward, out of the room. My room. He held up the brass key. It gleamed dully under the hallway lights. "Key for room 7? I looked at the door number. The brass numeral 7 was screwed crookedly to the peeling paint. It was room 7. But how? I'd just been in there. I'd seen the brown water in the shower. I'd seen my reflection. Panic clawed at my throat. Where is the real me, the one who was in here?" He didn't answer. He just stood there, blocking the doorway, holding the key. The hallway felt colder. The hum of the lights seemed louder, vibrating in my teeth. I glanced down the hall toward the lobby. The 4 men were still there, eating in silent unison. The clerk was watching me now, his expression unreadable behind his thick glasses. I needed proof, something tangible. I pushed past the man in the hoodie, my hoodie, ignoring the jolt of revulsion as my shoulder brushed his, and stumbled into room 7. It was empty. The bed was neatly made, the scratchy blanket pulled taut. The bathroom door was open, no damp towels, no steam on the mirror. The sputtering shower head was dry. The outlet where I'd plugged my phone, the charger was gone, completely gone, as if I'd never been there. On the dresser, where my duffel bag should have been, sat a single, cheap plastic toiletry bag, identical to the one the man in the hallway held. I opened it with trembling hands. Inside, a travel-sized toothpaste, a generic razor, deodorant. All unopened, all generic, nothing personal, nothing that was mine. The man in the hoodie stood silently just inside the door, watching me. "Your things were removed," he stated flatly, "during cleaning, standard procedure after checkout." "I didn't check out. I was here." "Checkout time is 11, he said, his voice devoid of any nuance. "You are checking out now. Give me the key." I didn't have a key. I'd left it on the dresser. I must have. But the dresser was bare except for the cheap lamp. My duffel bag was gone. My clothes, My wallet, my dead phone, all gone. Erased. As if I'd never occupied this room. As if he had always been the one staying here. You took my things, I whispered, the words catching in my dry throat. Items not removed by checkout time are disposed of, he replied. He held out his hand, the hand that was my hand. The key, please. I had no key. I backed towards the door, needing air, needing to escape this suffocating duplication. I shoved past him again, stumbling into the hallway. I didn't look at the breakfast area. I headed straight for the lobby counter, my breath coming in ragged gasps. The clerk looked up as I approached, his expression unchanged. "Checking out, Mr. Ellis." Ellis, my name, but it didn't feel like mine in his mouth. It felt like a label applied to a package. "Where are my things?" I demanded, my voice shaking. "My bag, my wallet, my phone, they were in room 7. Room 7 was cleaned at 10:45 a.m., he said calmly, setting down his rag. Guests are responsible for removing personal effects before checkout time. Unclaimed items are incinerated. He slid a sheet of paper across the counter. A receipt. Balance due, 0. Key deposit forfeited. Due to. Late checkout. Have a safe drive, Mr. Ellis. I stared at the receipt. My name was printed there. Jonah Ellis. But the details were wrong. The room number was 14. The date was yesterday. The checkout time was 11:05 a.m. Today was Tuesday. The date on the receipt was Monday. Impossible. I'd only arrived last night. "Look," I said, forcing calm I didn't feel. "There's been a mistake. I just stayed here last night. Room 7. I haven't checked out yet. I need my things back. My ID. My money." The clerk's magnified eyes held no sympathy, only a faint impatience. "You checked out of room 14 yesterday at 11:05 a.m., Mr. Ellis. Your vehicle, a silver Honda Civic, license plate 7XG382, left the premises at 11:17 a.m. Security camera footage confirms." He tapped a dusty monitor under the counter. A grainy black and white image flickered on the screen. A car that looked like mine pulling out of the parking lot. The driver? It was me, or someone with my face. Wearing the blue flannel shirt. My blood turned to slush. That shirt was in my duffel bag. In room 7. The bag that was gone. "That's not me," I choked out. "I just got here last night. I haven't driven anywhere." The clerk sighed, a dry, papery sound. "Guests often experience disorientation after extended stays, Mr. Ellis. The evergreen has a calming effect. It helps people let go of burdens, unwanted memories, unpleasant truths." He leaned forward slightly, his voice dropping to a confidential murmur, though there was no one else in the lobby except the silent, identical men slowly finishing their breakfasts. "You've been with us a long time, Jonah, longer than you remember. It's time to let the new you take the wheel, the one who doesn't carry the weight." He nodded towards the hallway. "He's waiting for the car keys." I turned, standing just inside the lobby entrance, leaning against the doorframe exactly as the first one had, was another me. This one wore the blue flannel shirt from the security footage. He held out a hand. In it were my car keys, my real keys, with the chipped plastic fob shaped like a tiny guitar pick. "No," I whispered. "No, that's mine. I need to leave." "He needs to leave," the flannel-shirted me said, my voice calm, reasonable. "I'm just taking the car to finish the drive home, to your wife, to Sarah." He said her name softly. Sarah. My wife's name? Only I knew that. Only I knew how her laugh sounded when she was trying not to snort, the tiny freckle behind her left ear, the way she hummed off-key in the shower. How did he know? The clerk's voice cut through the rising static in my head. "The contract, Mr. Ellis. You signed it. Upon arrival. Standard for extended stays. Clause 7B. Transfer of primary identity upon checkout is mandatory for continuity of experience. It's better this way. Cleaner, less messy than disposal." He slid another sheet of paper across the counter. A contract. My signature. My messy. My scrawl was at the bottom. Dated 3 weeks ago. For a 30-day stay in room 14. I hadn't signed this. I'd never been here 3 weeks ago. I'd never seen this contract. But the signature, it was mine. Down to the slight upward flick on the Y. Impossible, yet there it was. A cold certainty seeped into my bones. Colder than the rain outside. This wasn't a mistake. This was designed. This was happening. The flannel-shirted me stepped closer. He didn't look threatening. He just looked tired. Profoundly bone-deep tired. The same tiredness I'd seen in my own eyes in the mirror this morning, but in his eyes it was mixed with something else. Relief. "It's okay," he said softly, my voice thick with an emotion I couldn't name. "I'll take care of her. I'll fix the leaky faucet in the kitchen. I'll remember to buy her favorite tea. I'll be the husband you couldn't be, the man you wanted to be." He held out the keys again. "Let me carry it. Let me have the life. You've earned the rest." The words struck a chord deep within me, a resonance I couldn't deny. The weight, the constant pressure of being me, the failures, the compromises, the quiet dread that woke me at 3 a.m., the sheer exhaustion of holding herself together. It was heavy, so heavy. Watching him stand there, holding the keys to my car, to my life, to Sarah. He looked so certain, so capable. He looked like the man I'd always pretended to be. The clerk cleared his throat. "The transfer must be voluntary, Mr. Ellis. For the tether to hold, he can't take what you don't release." All the Johns, Hoodie, Flannel, the ones still at the breakfast table, stopped what they were doing. They all turned. 12 identical faces, 12 pairs of my tired eyes, all fixed on me. Waiting, not demanding, just waiting for me to choose, to let go. The weight pressed down. The memory of Sarah's face when I left for this trip. Her worry, the unspoken, "Please come," back whole this time, felt like a physical ache. The thought of facing that again, of failing again, it was a wall I couldn't climb. The man in the flannel shirt wasn't a thief. He was an offer, an escape, a chance for her to have the better version, for me to stop carrying the unbearable weight of being imperfectly, messily human. My hand moved before my mind could protest. I took the keys from his outstretched palm. They felt warm, real. Then, slowly, deliberately, I placed them back in his hand. My fingers brushed his. The same rough patch on the knuckle from the bike fall when I was 10. The same faint tremor when nervous. He closed his fingers around them. "Be good to her," I whispered, my voice cracking. The words tasted like surrender, like ash. He nodded, a single solemn dip of the chin. "I will, I promise." He turned and walked out the front doors into the still falling rain. I watched through the grimy glass as he got into my car, my silver Honda Civic. He started the engine, the familiar cough of the old motor echoing in the quiet parking lot. He pulled out onto the highway, the taillights disappearing into the gray curtain of rain, heading towards the life that was no longer mine. Silence descended in the lobby. Heavy. Final. The clerk slid a new registration card across the counter. Fresh. Blank. "Room 14 is vacant now, Mr. Ellis," he said, his voice back to its flat monotone. "Would you like to stay? The rate is very reasonable. All utilities included. No burdens, no memories, just rest." I looked down at the card. My hand hovered over the pen. The name Jonah Ellis was already printed at the top. Below it, a blank line for signature, my signature, the same signature that had condemned me. The weight was gone, truly gone. In its place was a vast, hollow quiet, a peace so deep it felt like the absence of self. The clerk watched me, waiting. The other Johns had returned to their breakfasts, eating in silent, perfect unison. The hum of the fluorescent lights filled the silence. The chemical smell of the carpet cleaner was almost comforting now. Sterile, clean. I picked up the pen. The plastic felt cool in my fingers. I didn't remember where I'd gotten this pen or this hand or this name. It didn't matter. The hollow quiet was good. The peace was good. I pressed the pen to the paper. The ink flowed smoothly. My signature, Jonah Ellis, appeared on the line, neat, precise, utterly unfamiliar. The clerk took the card, stamped it with a loud thwack, and slid a new brass key across the counter. "Number 14. "Welcome back, Mr. Ellis," he said, not looking up. "Your room is ready. Checkout is at 11. He turned back to polishing his coffee mug, the rag moving in slow, endless circles. I took the key. It felt warm in my palm, heavy with promise. I turned towards the hallway, towards room 14. My footsteps on the thin carpet made no sound. None of the other Johns looked up as I passed. They just kept eating their danishes, sipping their coffee, their identical faces serene in the greenish fluorescent light. The weight was gone. The hollow quiet was everything. I walked down the hall, the brass key clutched tight, already forgetting the taste of rain, the smell of the car's upholstery, the specific curve of Sarah's smile. The peace was so deep, so complete. Room 14 waited. I would rest. I would rest forever. The key turned smoothly in the lock. I stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind me. The silence was perfect. The quiet was home. I am Jonah Ellis. I am at peace. I am no one at all. The hollow hummed, and I let it fill me.